usually the best pubs don't serve food, in my opinion.
But do you like pub food?
Yeah.
What's typical pub food?
Uh,
Like chips,
Cumberland sausage and chips. Yeah.
Cumberland sausage.
Up here, it's Cumberland sausage and chips. It depends what different types of pubs you go to, because
How
there's
many
like
friends
obviously
have given you
chain.
the Cumberland sausage?
I've had many lengths of Cumberland sausage in my time. A ring, whole rings, just crisps.
Do you guys have pickled eggs?
On the west coast of Cumbria, this is a favorite snack of the west coast of Cumbria. I would never eat this, but it's a pickled egg inside of ready salted crisps.
Wait, I don't get it. It's a pickled egg inside of a
You
crisp.
buy a pickled egg and then you get some ready salted crisps in the same pub. You put the egg inside the crisps and you kind of mash it all together and then you eat it.
Do the hokey pokey.
And you turn around. That's what it's all about.
That sounds fucking vile. Barf.
Yeah, I can't eat eggs anyways, even if they are pickled. I can't eat them. So
I always think
my
of
idea of hell.
I always think of Moe's Tavern and the
Oh
pickled eggs.
yeah,
Those disgusting pickled eggs have been there for like 2 decades.
in a fart jar.
Oh yeah, I don't know how many listeners on there are on the Patreon, but Kate and I went into a lot of detail discussing fart jars
That
today.
existed for a long time throughout time. Fart jars were used. I've never been to the Bush in Cockermouth, but I've been to the Bitter End. I've had the Bitter End in Cockermouth, Nobbergob.
Cockermouth.
Parma and chips is more a Geordie thing. You go across to Northumberland to get a Parma and chips. But here in the north, what they don't have down south is we have munchie boxes. So you'll go to like a Chinese and you'll get a box full of like munchies. It'll be like the pork balls or chicken balls and
Crab
then
rangoon?
ribs. Crab magoo, what's that?
No, crab rangoon.
Is that a munchie box?
I don't know. I've never
What's
heard
crab?
munchie box.
Yeah,
Mu-
it's all like
munching box means something completely
yeah,
different.
no, it
here.
does. I love the fact it's so northern to call it a munchie box. But it will be like, the spring rolls, the prawn toast, maybe some ribs, some chips, all in one box, a munchie box. Very big deal up north. And you will probably get a munchie box rather than get like a full meal from a Chinese, because you can get like 50 quids worth of munchie boxes.
I love that term,
innocent.
munchie box.
A munchie box. It's more innocent life up here.
All right. I'm about ready to go.
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting hungry now thinking about munchie boxes.
Thinking about munching box.
Thinking about munching a box, getting hungry.
All right. Let me
Wet
get
your
my
volume a little and then make sure that's that. Yeah, spot on. I'm ready.
do. All right. Cool. Checkity check. Shall we get going?
Yeah.
I feel like I need to adjust this just a little bit. There you go. All right. Good evening. Welcome to Sick and Wrong, the world source for antisocial commentary. I'm one of your hosts, E. Simon.
Hello, I'm the other host, Kate Rambo.
Okay, Rambo, my arm is in pain.
From all the jacking off that you do.
Well, that too. But actually, no, recently my arm's in pain because I got the COVID vaccine yesterday.
Oh, well done. And nothing has it caused your dew throw to start falling out? Are you becoming one of them?
There's a couple side effects I'm gonna get to in a second, but I was, they put it like far into your deltoid, so I think that's why, like, you get a tetanus shot, it gets a soreness. This is definitely worse than a tetanus shot.
Is it in your wanking arm? Because I would want it in the non-wanking arm.
It's in my left arm, which is not my go-to.
That's your
arm for a wink.
stranger arm.
It's the stranger, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I got my COVID vaccine yesterday at the Dodger Stadium. They're doing it like at different stadiums here. They're also doing it. I mean, they have it like Rite Aid, all the pharmaceutical companies, things like that. But they do in categories. So I think right now, well, they're done. They've already done the seniors, the pensioners. And I think they kind of went to. They already did. They did the immunocompromised. They did the seniors. They've done essential workers, and I think they opened it up recently to food and drug and or food and agriculture. But
Yes.
so I don't really qualify for any of those. And so I've just been kind of waiting. But then my sister, she was like, "Well, you got to register for it." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "Well, register for it because they do lotteries." I was like, "What? Would they just pick out? You know, they do a lottery about who can get it?" But apparently, you can't like keep. They get a certain amount of vaccines, and you can't like keep it sitting there in like a refrigerator for like 2 weeks, you know, and just use them when you want to. So people who book appointments, if they don't show up for their appointments, they have extra vaccines. So I guess here they've been doing these lotteries where if you're registered, they'll just email you saying like, "Hey, can you make it?" And so I got an email on Friday and I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, I guess I'll go." And so I must and I kind of felt a little guilty because I was like, "Dude, should I do this?" You know, there might be
Well,
old
you're gonna
people
have
that
it
need it.
eventually. You're gonna have it eventually. So
Yeah, so I
oh,
figured, you know, I might as well. So I ended up going over to yeah, Dodger Stadium and you know, they're actually pretty organized. Like they're pretty efficient, like got everybody through there. Um but yeah, you go up there, show your ID, they like do a little scan of this QR code and then it's all like less than 10 minutes and they like prick you in your arm and then you have to sit there for like 15 minutes because they want to make sure you don't pass out behind your wheel.
of
Like,
course.
well, because some people, I guess it affects people differently. Most people I've heard get the pain in the arm. It didn't hurt that bad, like when I first got it, but about, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 hours, started feeling sore. And then like the next day, really fucking sore. Like
I
sore
heard
that it
that.
was hard to like reach for things. Like that's kind of how it is right now. It's like I can go about here and that
That's
gets
it.
really painful. I have noticed though, one other thing, my testicles seem a bit larger than normal.
Oh, is that where the vaccine's gone straight for? It's gone to
I,
eradicate your Jewish sperm. This
you
is
know
a
what?
good thing.
Well, I don't know if eradicating would make him grow, but they've grown a bit. I mean, I'd show you, but we're streaming and I want to get banned from the YouTube.
You can show me later, and I reckon
Well,
that what it's doing is it's eradicating your Jewish sperm so that you can't procreate. And this is a
and that's why
goy
it's enlarging them.
invention. Yeah, because at the minute it's like they've sent in other fighters to kill your fighters. There's a whole war going on in your testicles right now.
Maybe. Is it workplace harassment if I show you my balls?
No, because I said I will see your balls, and there's witnesses to this.
Harrison hated when I did that.
Oh,
He'd
he
send me
loved
like
it.
a 3 page email saying how much it bothered him, like it hurt him to see my
he
balls.
he was actually upset that you didn't show him your balls enough, and that's why he's no longer on the show.
I'm joking. I never showed him my balls. Never showed Wacky my balls. I'm not going to show you my balls either, no matter how many times you ask me. I don't know. They're big. They're larger than normal, and I just don't know. Maybe it's because I haven't wanked for a few days. That could be. But I've been like, you know how when you get something done like this, you start feeling psychosomatic. Like,
Of
are there
course.
changes in my body? Do I feel sick? Are my balls bigger? You know, it's like you start thinking about things. So I don't know. As far as I can tell right now, I think it's fine. Glad I did it. However, I've read that there's 41% of Americans say they're not willing to receive the coronavirus vaccine.
Really? It's not like that.
41%.
It's not like that in Britain. It's like 8 out of 10 people in the age, because we're doing it in age ranges, and nobody outside of that age range can get the vaccine. 8 out of 10 people are going for it.
Well, so you guys are kind of like sheep. Like government tells you to do something, you're like, all
Yes,
right, yes, we'll do it.
the
You know,
sheeple of Britain.
not America. We're just like, fucking, we're American.
Do you know why we're doing it? Because we
Don't
want
tell us
pubs
what to
back.
do.
We want pubs. Why is it you not guys? Why don't you guys want pubs back? I want pubs
Well,
back. I will take a vaccine for a pub any day.
well, that's my sentiment exactly. It's like these motherfuckers not taking. We need herd immunity. They say 70% of the population needs to be vaccinated in order to obtain herd immunity, which will pretty much wipe out the virus. And in order to do that, You gotta get your fucking vaccine, you pricks. I don't give
So
a shit about it.
I'm only a doctor of fun and cum. I'm not a doctor of science. So if they give the vaccine to 70% of people, by the time it gets down to me, will I even need to get the vaccine then?
I wonder though if you would be in the 70%.
I'm going to be one of the last in line to get it because
So
I'm
yeah, I mean, you guys, I mean, you're also a lot smaller than the states. So you might achieve herd immunity like way sooner than we
quicker.
would.
They, yeah. I wonder.
You know.
I would like someone to write in and correct me in a nice tone.
Well, confidence in the vaccine is definitely growing the past couple months, and now Biden like unveiled a partnership with Merck and Johnson to produce a single dose vaccine because the one I got was Pfizer, so I have to go back end of March and get a second dose. Um, but I guess the U.S. will have enough two dose inoculations from Pfizer and Moderna to vaccinate every American by the end of May.
Well, that's quicker than what the UK are predicting.
Yeah,
We're
I was
not.
wondering what the UK's rollout
I
is.
think they're saying September, June, July, September time. That everyone will have been offered it, and then they're going to go back round again and give it to everyone who hasn't had it yet. Because I mean, in the beginning, there was a lot of shaky thoughts to it, wasn't there? People are like, I'm not going to take this out. It's going to kill me. But now everyone's been getting it and been surviving. I think people will just go
Well,
back.
back in September, there were a lot of people. I think it was like 20% said they'd take the vaccine. Then November, I think it's like it went up to, I don't know, 60%. We're like, yeah, or 35% or something. We're like, we'll take the vaccine. And now, I mean, yeah, what is it? 61% will take the vaccine, but there's still, or 59% will take the vaccine. Still 41% of people
Yeah,
are
that's
still wavering about
close.
it. And what's crazy about it, despite the increased willingness, some minority groups and people in lower income levels have said that they're less willing to take the vaccine. And is it the minority groups who are like
Who are
higher risk?
dying? Yeah,
Yeah,
the ones who are dying from it. That's strange. You'd think they would be up for it.
I don't get it. Black and Hispanic adults said that they're more likely to do a wait and see approach
Okay.
before signing up to take the vaccine.
Let's wait and see if I die first.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was affecting lower income lower income people and minorities in general, more so than like the white population. So I'm surprised they're just like, yeah, fuck yeah, give me the vaccine. They were also like, I think if you were Hispanic or black and you were also like above the age of 50, you were like further in line to get it. So I don't understand why they aren't lining up.
Oh, it's very strange. I don't understand. I would just
God,
get it done,
pisses me
mates.
off.
Just get it done, mates, and we can all have pubs back. We can all go on holidays again.
In order to achieve herd immunity, for me to be able to drink in a fucking bar again. Get your fucking shot, you pricks. It
Yes.
pissed me off when I was reading that. But you know what though? I mean, that's California. Texas and Florida, they don't give a shit.
They should just kind of cut off Texas and Florida now and just let them sail into the ocean, shouldn't they? And just let them become their own principalities.
I'm very interested to see what will happen in Texas.
Well,
I mean,
I think
maybe it'll just be what if they just, nothing happens, it's all fine. I don't
I
know.
think Texas is what third for deaths at the minute, but I'm pretty sure that Texas is going to be the first for deaths very soon.
A coworker of mine just went to Key West and she was like, she went there like a couple weeks ago, but she was saying that it was as if Corona never even happened. She's like, everybody was in bars drinking, not a single mask in sight. And they were wearing masks and people were looking at them weird.
Yeah, Florida.
Well, I think part of the thing is with Texas, Texas is a big spring break destination. So it's going to be like a major super spreader.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because it's all the young people who are spreading the vaccine to all the old people. So,
Yeah, what
oh
if it's going to
well.
be like a race, like herpes, gonorrhea, COVID, like
Oh, and
who's
syphilis.
going to
I've heard
win?
that syphilis is making a comeback as well.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to
Let's
win
throw
this one.
syphilis into the mix. It's what 2021 needs. Syphilis and some good serial killers.
Some SIF COVID. You know what I didn't notice this when I was there, but maybe because I went on Friday, like Friday morning. But there people have said that there's been anti-vax protesters outside of Dodger Stadium with their signs.
Oh, of
And a
course.
month ago in February, they like blocked like traffic trying to get in there to get your vaccines. Like these far right protesters and anti-vaxxers were out there with their signs. And so like LAPD had to go there and like move them out of the way. So in order to like allow people to go in there and get vaccinated. So now because of out of respect for people's First Amendment rights, they're confined to a specific area in front of Dodger Stadium where they can come out there with their signs. Ridiculous.
I can't wait for them to spread the COVID amongst them, and then they all die. Where will their
I mean,
signs be then?
I just don't get why are they so scared? Like, what's the deal? I mean, it's been tested. It's effective against stopping this virus. The side effects have been proven to be minimal. I mean, I don't know if testicle enlargement is
Some
a
people
common side effect, but
some people obviously my testicles are the perfect size. I don't want them enlarged, but some people want their testicles to be bigger.
women love that.
Some
So I've
women
heard.
do love that.
But I
Some
mean, that's the thing. It's not some alternative form of medication. It's not like MK Ultra or like the Oak Ridge program in the 1960s that we're about to talk about.
that
You
was
know,
so smooth.
it's a nice segue. But
Yeah.
most people have heard of speaking of MK Ultra, most people have heard of Project MK Ultra. I mean, a lot of people have heard the term, maybe don't know specifically what it is, but I know there's like a million podcasts I've covered it. Um, but MK Ultra was like a CIA mind control program that was done in the 60s, and they had experiments on humans or volunteers that were supposed to identify and develop drugs that could be used for interrogations in order to weaken the individual and force confessions through mind control. And they had like a numerous methods to do this, but one of the things is they gave you high doses of LSD and other chemicals, along with electroshocks, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, things like that. But this research was done at colleges and at universities, hospitals, even some prisons as well. But mostly it was like volunteer based where they did this. Whereas the Oak Ridge program that we're about to talk about was quite a bit different. And so I could see people being against the Oak Ridge program, you know. Um, they also used LSD in their experiments, but they used it for therapy. However, their patients were chained together and they were naked. So
Okay.
yeah, definitely a bit different than MK Ultra. Before we get into it, I want to give a shout out to Sophie who suggested the topic on the Discord. I gotta say, it warms my cold black Jewish heart when listeners suggest cool topics that we haven't done on the show before.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this before Sophie put it up. We've got a lot of cool women that listen to this podcast, and Sophie is just one of them. She
Yeah, it's
rocks.
cool. I mean, we have a section on the Discord with show suggestions, and so every now and then I'll kind of flip through it. I'll be like, "Oh, that looks interesting." So she just read a book about this nude LSD therapy, and I was like, "I think we might have to talk about this on the show."
Yeah.
So the Oak Ridge program was that what took place at the Oak Ridge Asylum, and I'm going to butcher this name, but I'm going to give it a try. It's in Penetanguishene, Ontario. So it's a asylum that was in Canada. So there it is. That's an old picture of it. But yeah, it started in August 15th, 1904. This asylum for the insane in Penetanguishene officially opened on the grounds of the former reformatory for boys, which is like a boys reformatory that used to be there that burned down. The first admission consisted of 50 patients who were transferred from the asylum for the insane in Mimico, which I guess was, I don't even know how to say these names, Etobicoke, Ontario. I don't know how to say these
I think
names.
you're doing very well.
They got to be like Inuit names or something. And this institution is now known as the regional division of the Waypoint Center for Mental Health Care, and it's remained in continuous operation. I don't think they do the experiments, the naked LSD experiments anymore, but it's definitely, still in operation. In 1933, the first 4 wards of the new building, Oak Ridge, were constructed. And these were originally intended to provide custodial care to the criminally insane. So
Mm.
people who are not guilty by reason of insanity. And it was the only institution of its kind in Canada at that time. So this is a picture of actually the boys' reformatory. Although they do look like they might be insane. So maybe they were criminally insane. So during this period, they changed the name of the institution to the Ontario Hospital. So prior to 1933, mentally disordered offenders were shunted around the province to all these different locations. But finally, now they had a facility at Oak Ridge where these people could live and they could be treated. So it was known as the criminal insane building. Some people
That's
just call it the new building.
that's a cool name. That's like something that would happen that would be around in Gotham and the Joker like Arkham, isn't it?
Arkham, yeah, yeah, the
Yeah.
CIB. So I think
Yeah.
I have a picture of what it looks like now, but it's still around. Yeah, there it is. It's a pretty large facility. Is that like what
They
is that
have
like
a
a tennis
tennis
court?
court. Yeah, a wonderful tennis court. And I wonder if they have like a swimming pool or something like that as well for the summer months in this maybe this blue building here.
So their treatments were pretty cutting edge and progressive at the time, very unique in terms of other psychiatric treatments in Canada as well as the US. Between 1963 and 1977, half of the patient population at Oak Ridge were engaged in what became known as the Oak Ridge program. So half of them were in this therapeutic community model where patients directed their own treatment, which is
Yeah.
kind of odd.
So that's kind of like I can't remember the name of the school. It's in Oregon where Matt Groening went, but it's like a progressive school where you pick your subjects and you can kind of like teach each other. There's like
I mean,
progressive
yeah,
schools like that.
I mean, a similar concept, but just make it for criminally insane
Just
people.
make, yeah, make it for insane people and let them choose their treatment.
Well, I mean, this is, the 1960s. So it's like obviously they were looking for alternative forms of therapy. And so the concept behind the therapeutic community is a shift in power. Instead of staff telling patients, how they're going to be treated, the responsibility was given to the patients themselves. So patients determined their own rules for the ward. They gave out punishments to those within the group who deviated from certain parameters that they established themselves. Patients were encouraged to speak freely of their feelings or emotions without any fear of repercussion. So, yeah, I mean, the patients, it was kind of like the lunatics were running the
The
asylum
asylum. I
in
was
a
just
sense,
thinking that this is not going to end well, is it?
Well, they didn't initiate this form of therapy. It actually kind of developed towards the end of the Second World War for use with injured soldiers by a famous British psychiatrist named Dr. Maxwell Jones. The model was adopted into a number of mental hospitals and correctional facilities right after the Second World War. And I mean, Jones described it as being increasingly encouraged for use with patients who were suffering from psychopathic personality disorders because it allowed them to kind of take control of their own treatment and speak their mind, in a sense, without fear of being, any kind of repercussions or consequences. So the there were four phases, I guess, at Oak Ridge. So between the 60s and the 70s, there were four phases of treatment that occurred. So phase one was the therapeutic community. And this is the model where the patients elected amongst themselves a council of 12, which included a chairman and a vice chairman. So you had all these criminally insane people say, you're the chairman, you're the vice chairman. And the ward councils would all meet every 2 weeks and they'd discuss all the policies on their respective wards. And staff maintained the ultimate power to approve or disapprove final decisions. But generally, I mean, they gave the ward free range, to run everything.
It's
So
like little UN.
literally it was lunatics running the asylum. One ward council, they just gave a couple examples here in the article I read. One ward council discussed the problem of dangerous weapons being smuggled onto the ward. And after much argument, they passed a motion that if patients became aware of a weapon, it was their duty to confiscate it any way they saw fit.
That's not going to end well.
Another ward decided that patients should only intervene to save the life of a volunteer or student nurse, not the life of another patient or staff.
That's also not going to end well. Why are they letting them do this? Why?
So this new structure was radically different from the authoritarian model, that characterized traditional institutionalization. Um, but I mean, they felt that this would benefit patients and give them the responsibility, put them, the onus to learn responsibility so that they can, when they were released back in the community, they had these skills. They weren't just like waited on, you
I,
know,
I, can- I can
or
see both
subservient to
sides,
other people.
but it's not going to help them. You're letting them live without rules and boundaries in a way that normal
Well,
society has.
Yeah, but you're giving them responsibility to establish their own rules rather than being
But
forced
we
by an
don't. But we
authoritarian
don't have
power.
that in society. We have rules. We don't. We can't go and make our own rules inside of a society that already has a rule.
Well, I think part of this, though, it sounds like they didn't have ultimate authority. It's like the doctors, the staff, had authority. So you had to, exist within the confines of a structure of rules. However, they gave them some responsibility to make their own decisions about certain things,
I
which
would
could
walk
be
out of this
considered
board of doctors had I been
it could
there.
be considered a good or a bad thing.
Hmm.
Um, but this environment at Oak Ridge in the early 60s was primed for new ideas. I think they were tired of the authoritarian regime and the authoritarian conception of how to treat patients, and so I think they were like, let's try new ideas and new forms of psychotherapy. And so, with patients determining their own ward policies and helping to facilitate their own psychotherapy sessions amongst themselves, it gave them, also, not to mention, you know, allowed the patients to have different connections with different individuals, almost like even a doctor patient relationship. But it gave them cost benefits as well. If you think about it, you didn't need as much, didn't need as many doctors in there. Have the patients do the work.
Good point. Good point,
Yeah,
Reagan.
there's
Or we
some
could
there's
just,
some thinking.
or we could just close it down entirely and just let them back into society.
Well, now that's what Reagan did.
Hmm.
Cost too much. Phase two was the social therapy unit. So the therapeutic community formed the basis of what was known as the at Oak Ridge as the social therapy unit, the STU. Um, and so what this was is they focused on enabling communication. So the premise was held that mental illness and particularly personality disorders grew from an inability on the part of the individual to adequately communicate their thoughts to themselves and to others. And so the patient population of the wards of the STU, social therapy unit, was mostly comprised of younger men in their late teens to early 20s. Primary diagnoses in the wards was a mix of personality disorders, especially psychopathy and schizophrenia. So they're psychopaths, schizophrenics, all live together in a happy
As I
community.
say, all just mixing together.
So it was during this time that a famous doctor, famous psychiatrist, Dr. Elliot Barker, arrived. And I think we got a picture of him.
We do have a picture of Elliot Barker. Oh, wrong way. Oh no, there's the
Oh,
inside
okay.
of
Yeah,
the.
here's a picture of the inside of God, looks so welcoming, so homely.
All the
Yeah.
boys in their lovely 60s, 70s fashions. And here's
There he
Elliot.
is. There's Dr. Elliot Barker. So the STU was defined primarily by the vision of this man, Dr. Elliot Barker, and also the superintendent of Oak Ridge, Dr. Barry Boyd. Um, Barker came to Oak Ridge in 1965. Apparently, he and his wife, Julie, went on a tour of institutions around the world and trying to learn different techniques of therapy techniques. And he took all of this and he brought this new vision here to Oak Ridge. He was more than happy to continue on with the ward councils that Boyd had initiated. And together they began to add to the programming. So phase three, the Oak Ridge experiment comes into its own. So the social therapy unit at Oak Ridge started taking on its own identity right after Barker showed up. They did group psychotherapy sessions. They had a committee. They had council meetings. These sessions encouraged confrontation among the patients in order to push individuals to contribute more. Participation was mandatory in these sessions. And some of the sessions ranged from like supportive to like anxiety arousing. Like they would
Oh,
provoke the people, to participate in these sessions, like screaming at each other, trying to provoke and cause them to be emotional rather than just like, isolate themselves. Patients who refused attendance were forcibly brought to all sessions and prevented from leaving. Any patient who was deemed at risk of suicide or self harm was physically handcuffed to another patient who became responsible for ensuring their safety and continued participation in the program. So you had
this
some
does not
problems.
seem kosher at all.
I just find it funny. It's like, so you got a bunch of psychopaths, you got a bunch of schizophrenics. Let's handcuff them together, put them in a room, and force them to be in this like particularly like emotional therapy.
And
You
if we
know,
think you're super emotional and you might be killing yourself, well, we're gonna force you. Eh, I don't want to go to Oak Ridge. No, no, no.
so they kind of move through all the different wards. There's like wards A through H. So when they first came in, they would enter ward H, and they'd be indoctrinated with the vocabulary and the psychological concepts of the program. And then they kind of make their way through all the different wards. Now, the ward I want to focus on here is ward G and F, these two wards. So this is where they started experimenting or brought, I guess, mind altering drugs into the treatment program here. So
Fun.
this, keep in mind though, this is like the milieu of all this. This is the 1960s. LSD was kind of relatively new at the time. I mean, people had been experimenting on it, but it was relatively new, especially being used to treat patients.
It was legal as
Um,
well, wasn't it? When did Nixon make it illegal? Was it
yeah, I
69?
think all these drugs were legal at this time.
Yeah, LSD
Yeah.
was a legal drug.
And it wasn't just they weren't just using LSD for these therapeutic treatments. There was a range of mind altering drugs that were being used. So this all started around 1966. G ward patients began to receive injections of sodium amytal, a drug best known as a sort of a truth serum. To ward off the sedative properties of the drug, they were then given the stimulant methadone. Meth.
uh,
So in their drug-induced state, the patients would then be interviewed by other patients, and then several months later, they added scopolamine, which is a drug with similar properties to sodium amytal that cause confusion and a lowering of inhibitions, also administered to the patients. I think to induce them to lose their inhibitions and participate more and share more, and speak more freely.
well, you certainly do that on meth.
Yeah, you speak a lot. February 1967, Dr. Barker started giving his patients lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD 25, colloquially known as acid. And now, acid had been already used in Canada at other psychiatric hospitals. The Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal and the Saskatchewan Mental Hospital in Weyburn both used it as a potential treatment for alcoholism and as a drug which could provide insight to the mind of a person who is suffering from hallucinations. So give them a drug that gives you more hallucinations.
Hallucinations, brilliant. This is like the primo acid as well. I'm quite jealous. This is
But yeah,
like
this is like what Timothy Leary,
was tripping
was
on. I
using.
know. A small part of me is a bit like, I want to be there for this acid.
God,
I'd
I
be
don't know.
queuing up
I
for
don't
it.
think I can handle this acid.
Yeah, it's my
Not
favorite
not at
drug.
my age.
I'd be happy to be there. Although I do like to be outside when I'm on acid, so I wouldn't like the whole chained chained
You
to a
would want to
skid
be
row.
nude, chained to a psychopath.
No, I don't. I wouldn't enjoy any
Sounds
of
like it's
that.
gonna be a great trip. But it wasn't only just that though. Is Dr. Barker, Elliot Barker's idea to create the total encounter capsule. This is on the F word. This was designed initially as an attempt to overcome the problem of the escapist role playing of the articulate psychopath. And I think that's part of it is a lot of these guys they're intelligent people. A lot of psychopaths were. Some were, some weren't. But a lot of them were so able to hide their true feelings and hide their emotions. So it was hard to get a
Well,
true read on these people,
that's what's dangerous about a psychopath is that they have no emotions. So
but they can
what
fake
he's
it.
trying to do exactly. So what he's trying to
Yeah.
do is to make them actually feel real emotions for the first time.
And so
That's what I think.
what he did is he put him inside the total encounter capsule. Now think about having you being, with a head full of LSD being in this situation. The capsule was a specifically designed 8 by 10, so 8 feet by 10 feet, windowless chamber at the end of the F word corridor, in which all distractions, books, television, music, everything had been removed. It featured a one-way mirror through which participants inside the capsule could be continually observed. Bright lights were kept on the pace on the participants at all time of the day. So you had no idea if it was day or if it was night.
This is like being in
So
solitary in jail.
in a sense, but you're not solitary. You're with like four or five other people.
In an
An
8 by
op-
10 cell.
and there was an open toilet, and there was liquid food that was made available through straws in the wall.
Gross. What type of food? Like blancmanges, soups, just
It's
pouring out through a straw.
it was liquid food like soups, milkshakes, tea, coffee, cocoa
That's disgusting.
through the
Eating your
wall
food
in a
through a
straw.
straw. Oh, that's gross. That's way worse than the toilet, in my
It was
opinion.
soundproof, windowless, continually lighted and ventilated, so I mean it didn't smell that bad. There was a soft rug over a foam floor, and yeah, all the essentials were there. Liquid food dispensers. There was a washing and toilet facility, but it was open, so you had to watch everybody using it. There's no privacy here. And there was a group. There would be a group of up to 7 patients who would live there for days at a time.
In an
Some
8 by
people in there
10
for a
cell.
month. Yeah.
No.
The capsule group was under constant observation. So they had like a closed circuit television. They had an audio amplifying system, and there was that one-way mirror where patient observers. So these were patients, other patients that were observing these patients who were in the capsule that were trained for this full-time job. So they had 8-hour shifts, and they had a wide variety of duties. Keep the supply of the liquid food coming,
Gross.
regulating the temperature of the capsule, record on videotape any interaction that's deemed significant enough to replay for the staff. And then they also kept a continuous record and then would intervene if there's any like physical acting out that might occur, which I imagine that had to have happened quite frequently.
Yeah, if your body is full of meth and acid, you are going to be wanting to get about.
So they wanted the patients to be in the capsule with nothing, like stripped bare, literally naked, no clothing at all. And they were confined within the space for, yeah, periods of between 2 to 4 months, several weeks at a time in there. The
Wow.
expectation, now here's the idea, the thought process behind it is once they were free of all distractions within this capsule environment, they would shed their inhibitions and share their thoughts freely with a group. Um, so now the first thing you hear about this is like, okay, there's a lot of weird things going on. They're in this capsule, they're drinking shots from the wall, but why are they naked? Like, why are they nude? And so this comes down to also another 60s philosophy, nude therapy. So this wasn't, Dr. Barker didn't make this up. He was inspired by an American psychologist named Paul Bindrum. So I think we have a picture. There's Paul, pervert, looks like a pervert, sex pest. So this began in the 1960s. Paul Bindrum set up a therapy group at a hotel in Palm Springs, California. He charged $100 for people to spend the weekend and a group of participants, during which they would take part in a number of group therapy techniques completely naked. The idea was that nudity would free people from social constraints and unlock a window into their mind and soul.
That was popular at the time, though, being hippies, being free. But I must say, £100, $100 in 1960s money, it was cheaper to go see Elvis. To put that into
Yeah, I think I'd
perspective.
prefer to do that.
Well, me
So
too.
Elliot heard about these nude psychotherapy sessions that were going on in Palm Springs. I think we have some pictures of some of the sessions actually.
Oh yeah, we do.
Um, so it was kind of like a high class resort, and Palm Springs is kind of, yeah, there they are, all naked, hugging each other,
All
probably singing songs.
these hippies who are gonna name all their children like Moonflower, Star, Stargazer. They're all gonna
And
be
these,
called stuff like that.
but these weren't just like, regular people. A lot of these people, they're all strangers for the most part. Most of them were upper class California free thinkers and movie stars. And he would encourage them to eyeball each other and then hug and wrestle. And then oftentimes in the dark, and they would play a lot of new age music in the background. And they would sit naked in a circle, like we just saw, and perform a meditation like hum, and then dive headlong into a 24-hour nonstop nude psychotherapy session, where they would scream and yell and sob and confess their innermost fears and anxieties.
You're just describing tantric sex. The whole being nude and looking into each other's eyes is like stage one tantric sex.
Are you screaming and yelling and sobbing while you're having tantric sex?
I think that comes later after the orgasms. But this is this is very close to what tantric sex
After the
is.
Rohypnol wears off. Physical nakedness, Binder would explain, facilitates emotional nakedness and therefore speeds up psychotherapy. One of his most divisive ideas here is what he termed crotch eyeballing.
Oh.
He'd instruct a participant to sit in the center of the circle with their legs just wide open in the air. And then he'd command the others to stare at the person's genitals and anus, sometimes for hours, while he yelled, "This is where it's at. This is where we are so damn negatively conditioned."
What a way to spend your weekend in Palm Springs. Just
I hope they
staring at
bring back this
someone's
therapy.
asshole and pussy and
With like
with your negative connotations about their asshole and pussy.
with some insane psychotherapist just screaming at you, "This is where it's at."
Wow. Fun
So
time.
Elliot, was obviously inspired by this form of therapy, and he deduced that these psychopaths, these schizophrenics, were burying their insanity deep beneath a facade of normality. So there was this layer of normality that was hiding the psychopathic behavior. And if the madness could only somehow be elevated to the surface, maybe it would work itself through and they could be reborn as empathetic human beings. So he was giving them feelings. He was teaching them how to feel,
Feel.
teaching them how to be empathetic.
I
The
can see how
alternative
that
was
would
stark,
maybe
though.
work for the psychopaths, but how is that going to work for the schizophrenics?
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe with medication, you could control it,
But I mean, isn't
learn
the
how to
problem
act out.
with schizophrenics that they have way too much emotions because they've got 10 people living inside of them? So do they not need to like maybe have their emotions calmed down instead of
Well, I
upped?
think they just need some Thorazine. But unless their personalities could be radically altered, these young men were destined for a lifetime incarceration. They're going to be in Oak Ridge for the rest of their lives. But he wanted to rehabilitate them and let them out, return to society as productive members. So he sought permission from the Canadian government to obtain a large batch of LSD that was produced in a government sanctioned lab. So that shit was strong.
The
It was
best stuff.
powerful.
Yeah.
Connaught Laboratories at the University of Toronto. He handpicked a group of psychopaths that were selected on the basis of verbal ability, and most were relatively young and intelligent offenders between the age of 17 and 25. He then set up these small rooms with bright green walls that he called the total encounter capsules. And at first they were naked, given LSD for about 11 days. And they were encouraged to scream, claw the walls, and just divulge their deepest desires. There are no beds in there. So they were
You
forced to
would be
sleep on a small rug over a
you would be
foam mat.
clawing the walls. You're trapped inside a room for 11 days,
Yeah,
drinking
like
out
handcuffed
of a
to other men,
straw.
naked men. Doesn't this sound like the worst trip ever?
This sounds like the worst jail ever. That's what it sounds like.
There are no towels. There are no private washroom facilities. The sum total of facilities was one open toilet and one wash basin.
This is inhumane, even for the 60s. And this is again, yes, I know they're psychopaths, but these people have been judged by, a jury of their peers to go here to rehabilitate.
Well, I
This is
mean,
insane, man.
they quote unquote volunteered for it, but we'll get to that in a second. The
Oh,
early reports were gloomy, kind of negative. The atmosphere inside the capsule
you
was
don't
tense.
say.
Big surprise there. Psychopaths would stare angrily at one another. Days would go by when nobody would say a word. Some non
Wow.
cooperative prisoners, keep in mind, they're on a lot of acid. Some non cooperative prisoners especially resented being forced by their fellow psychopaths to attend a sub program where they had to intensively discuss their reasons for not wanting to intensively discuss their feelings. Others took exception to being forced to wear little girl type dresses,
What?
which was a psychopath devised punishment for non-cooperation. So keep in mind, these are ward councils. There are other psychopaths who are in charge of psychopaths. And so one of their forms of punishment for not participating was you got to wear this little girl dress.
That's what Charles Manson's mum did to him.
And
She's
Hemingway, a bunch of
she
people.
sent him to school in a dress, and look how Charles Manson turned out. Like, why? Why are they letting them do this?
The whole thing, for all the good intentions, just looked doomed for failure.
Do you think there's
So
good intentions here? I think there's idiotic intentions.
I read this. So one of the books that was about this experiment, pretty good one. John Ronson wrote a book called The Psychopath Test, and he interviewed a lot of prisoners who actually were, patients in these experiments. This guy named Steve Smith said, "I remember Elliot Barker coming into my cell. He was charming, soothing. He put his arm around my shoulder. He called me Steve. It was the first time anyone used my first name in there. He asked me if I thought I was mentally ill, and I said I thought I wasn't. And he said, well, I'll tell you. I think you're a very slick psychopath. I want you to know that there are people just like you in here who have been locked up more than 20 years. We have a program here that can help you get over your illness." So there I was, only 18 at the time. I'd stolen a car, so I wasn't exactly the criminal of the century. And I was locked in a padded room for 11 days with a bunch of psychopaths, a lot of us high on scopolamine, it's a type of hallucinogenic, and they're all just staring at me. And he asked him, well, did they say anything to you? He goes, they said that they were there to help me. He said, well, what was your single most vivid memory of your days inside the capsule? He said, I went in and out of delirium. One time when I regained consciousness, I saw that they had strapped me to Peter Woodcock. And he,
Oh.
he had, we'll get to a little more on Peter in a second.
Do not want to be strapped to Peter Woodcock.
John Ronson asked him, like, who's Peter Woodcock? And he said, why don't you go look it up? Peter Woodcock was born March 5th, 1939. He's a Canadian serial killer and child rapist who murdered 3 young children in Toronto when he was still a teenager. He was apprehended in 1957, declared insane, and placed in Oak Ridge. And so he said, why were you strapped to this child murderer? He said, he was my buddy, making sure I got through the drug trip safely. He said, did he say anything to you? He goes, he said he was there to help me.
The way that Elliot went about this, putting, he was the smooth and slick psychopath to me, enticing in this poor 18-year-old car thief. He sounds more like a psychopath. Maybe Elliot.
Well, that's the
should have been
worst
going
part.
through
It's like,
this.
you notice when you have a trip in a group, you want to be pretty selective about who
You
you're
have
tripping
to be
with. You want to
very
make sure you're not
selective.
going to trip with somebody who's going to flip the fuck out and ruin everybody's,
Good
buzz.
times.
Yeah, and then you never know. You could have somebody who's never done acid. I don't want to trip with somebody who's the first time doing acid.
Oh
You
no,
know?
I think it's fine to trip with the first time person. But you should always just be aware if you are taking acid and you don't like the situation, get out of it. There's nothing that should
I can
keep
tell you
there.
how
But these people can't leave. They're
I
all
can't
trapped
even
together.
count how many times someone's girlfriend was like, I want to do acid too. Next thing you know, she's crying for like 4 hours. And then the guy's like, I gotta take care of her. And then they're both freaking out. And then I'm like, I'm out of here. Let's go walk around the park.
I've left acid parties because I'm just like,
Take off.
because
You
people
know?
are being like that. It's just like you just get the inner urge. You're like, nah, I'm not hanging around for this. I've spent money on this trip. But these people, they can't do that.
Yeah, you're
It's
being
Peter
chained to a child
Woodcock.
murderer.
Yeah. A vicious child murderer too.
But the weird thing is, though, in time, a lot of these people had like positive effects, seemingly positive effects from this treatment. These tough young psychopaths, these young prisoners who have murdered people, started changing, their personalities, learning to care for one another inside the capsule. One prisoner told another, I love the way you talk. And there was real tenderness in his voice. You just let it flow from you, as if you own all the words in the world. You just let it flow from you, as if you own all the word. I'm having trouble saying this. You just let it flow from you as if you own all the words in the world.
This
They're
is
your
such
personal
acid talk.
property, and you make them dance for you.
I would hate to have documents of what the shit I say on acid. I would not want anyone writing it down.
Yeah, they're recording it. You're being videotaped, you know?
Yeah. Oh, how embarrassing the
Um,
next day.
Elliot psychopaths started becoming gentle. Some were even telling their parole boards that I don't want to be released until after I've completed the therapy. And the authorities were kind of shocked. Patients never request not to be let out. But there was hope now that these patients are breaking out of their psychological prisons. of indifference to the feelings of others, and a prison that to a greater or lesser extent confines us all. So these people were being made well again. People who had killed or raped while mentally ill were now becoming safe, trustworthy, and useful members of society.
Or so it appeared.
So it appeared. And so, yeah, a lot of, during the first 6 months of operation of the capsule, there are 47 patients. Two-thirds of the participants expressed a definite desire to re-enter the capsule and repeat the program again. 27% said they definitely would not want to do this, and
Yeah.
7% were undecided.
Do you think they wanted to maybe do the capsule just because it is obviously a break from the routine of, because if you're locked in a place like Oak Ridge for 20 years, 20 years plus, it's
Maybe
something
they just like the
new.
drugs.
And they also like the drugs.
I know. I think maybe
that's
they
the
were
appeal of it.
responding favorably to the treatment.
Yeah, I think they're responding favorably to acid. I don't think they're responding favorably to the treatment.
The administration of the mind-altering intravenous drugs, yeah, keep in mind, these were taken intravenously. So they were like, in acid injections, liquid acid injections. The administration was done by patients who determined who would receive the injection, how much, and when it would be administered.
What? So the other psychopaths that are watching them are kind of like,
Being like, give more
oh,
acid.
he needs another speedball, and give John Belushi another speedball over there.
I think he wants some methadone. Let's give him a little more scopolamine. And these are the laziest doctors of all time. Not only are they not doing the therapy sessions, they have the patients administering the drugs.
None of them are trained phlebotomists. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, so a lot of them were given massive doses of LSD, injected, intravenously, and then also given a combination of methadone, which is an amphetamine. It was a truly radical milestone at the time. The world's first ever marathon nude psychotherapy session for criminal psychopaths.
Wow. Even Woodstock didn't go on for 11 days.
Yeah, on acid. Well, there are a lot of naked hippies at that. So now we get into phase 4 here, the Barker-Meyer handoff. So Barker eventually moved on. He left Oak Ridge, but the STU was continued by a psychiatrist named Dr. Gary Meyer, and I think I have a picture of him.
Me too.
So in contrast to Barker, oh yeah, here's another psychopath. I don't know if he's on acid in this picture.
Well, no, because he's not naked and he's not chained up.
And he's not in the capsule, yeah. So this is just another hallway shot over at Oak Ridge. There he is.
I do like the capsule name, I must admit.
Dr. Gary Meyer right here. So in contrast to Barker's pressed shirts and more traditional, doctor demeanor, here you have long-haired Meyer, who oftentimes would walk around barefoot, and he had a more free-form approach.
Oh no.
Yeah.
How can it get more free-form, D? It seems like it's at the pinnacle of free-form right now.
Oh, it can.
What?
Gary Meyer still to this day looks back on these days fondly. He said these are the best days of his life.
Oh no, Gary!
How to make these men well. And he honestly believes, and this is what he said, in the trials that are going on right now, giving you like a little foreshadowing. He honestly believed that we're doing a job that most Canadian psychiatrists couldn't do. He's like, we were taking psychopaths on a journey into uncharted waters, like a dream group. Such a hippie. People dream, and I wanted to capture what was going on in their dreams. So before they went to bed, I'd have them hold hands and say, let me experience my dream life in this community. And then they would quietly go to sleep and dream.
That sounds awful. That sounds worse than being naked in a room for 11 days. Having to hold hands with somebody to say that little mantra. Put me in that room. Get me away from Gary.
They'd head straight to the dream group, which consisted of an equal number of psychopaths and schizophrenics. And they would all just talk about their vivid dreams.
Oh, my word. Gary.
This is kind of interesting, though. He was saying schizophrenics dreamed in color. The more intense a dream, the more likely it's going to be in color. But psychopaths, if they manage to dream at all, only in black and white.
And Gary knows this, does he, for a fact? Psychopaths who never lie about anything ever to appease you.
That's what he said.
Would not be lying right to your face, Gary.
So now the breaking point of the program here came in 1975. So Barker had left at this point. Meyer was in charge. Meyer thought that it'd be a good idea to orchestrate a mass psychedelic trip on one of the wards.
Oh, Gary.
So a group of 26 men were each injected with 300 micrograms of LSD.
Wow.
His intention was to encourage a collectively shared experience of self-knowing among a group of diagnosed psychopaths and schizophrenics. Instead, it heralded the demise of this decade-old program. Didn't it? You know, doesn't that sound like a great idea?
Let's round them all up.
Get them all naked and give them 300 micrograms of LSD. So I had to look this up actually, because I was like, is 300 micrograms, is that a lot or is that a little? Like, do you even know?
I think that feels
like
like
that
a
measurement.
Well, to me, that feels like a lot because you would get one little tab of paper and you put one drop.
But is one drop of 1 microgram? Like I didn't really know.
Oh, like yeah,
like I didn't really know how to measure it.
But
so
this
I
is
went
primo. Yes.
Well, I went to trippingly.net to see the LSD dosage guide here. So typically, a typical average LSD experience is between 75 micrograms to 150. And this is just a regular one. And this is probably all the acid trips we've done. And you get all the phases of the LSD experience, you know. At lower range, you might get the breathing effect, the strong psychedelic colors, the mild, you know, visual hallucinations where things appear slightly distorted. The higher end of the range, 150 micrograms, full hallucinations with objects appearing that don't exist, substantial distortion of actual objects, you know, like breathing walls, you know, swaying of objects like trees, cartoon-like images.
Oh, the fun times, dude. They're all coming back to
me. Then there's the 150 to 200 micrograms. Beautiful colors everywhere. Stronger visual hallucinations overall. Closed eye visuals are very apparent. Life-changing spiritual experiences may occur. Strong anxiety may also occur. Then there's 200 to 300 micrograms. The peak of this trip can be very intense and very scary. Once the peak effects are over, a state of contentment may follow. Sense of self remains intact, but irrational thoughts and obsessive thought patterns often arise, including thought loops or looping. Strong panic about one's own safety or the safety of loved ones may occur. And closed eye visuals are very strong at this dose. And now when you're at 300 to 400 micrograms, loss of sense of self/ego dissolution begins. Strong visuals, standard logic does not apply at this point. Visuals are extremely intense, very difficult to walk or understand normal day-to-day activities. And then there's like the 400 to 500 microgram. It's like time stops. Sense of self is gone. Full ego dissolution is possible. Body movements, very difficult, very disorienting. No longer able to form rational thoughts as one enters a temporary psychotic state. Not generally pleasant. Very intense visual hallucinations and closed eye hallucinations may be overwhelming. So
you're describing every Grateful Dead fan there.
He gave 26 naked psychopaths and schizophrenics 300 micrograms.
Wow.
That's intense. That's intense. So after that happened, he got a memo from the superintendent who was like, you know, there's been some concern here from the unit directors and some of the staff that the use of LSD as an experimental research tool maybe should be scaled back a bit. You know, maybe we should just not use this in, so we need to de-escalate these aspects. But he continued and he upped it. Now he was doing 40 patients.
On mass the same LSD dose.
Yeah. And then the other thing he allowed them to do, he didn't keep them in the capsule. He let them wander the entire facility.
Oh no.
So
Oh no,
by
Gary.
letting these patients wander the ward in a psychedelic trance, it was too much for the staff to deal with. Like, could you imagine? You could not pay me enough for that.
Oh, it'd be
Naked
so annoying.
lunatics running around under the influence of like strong hallucinogenic drugs. I'd rather work at Subway.
I would rather work at Subway. This would be so. Imagine, you're coming into work, you're about to start a 12-hour shift, and you're walking into that. I'd just say, I don't feel well. Get in my car and go home. I'm
In
not
this
dealing with
interview
this.
I read here with Ronson, he says in hindsight, I might have gone a bit too far. Might have been a little heart
Maybe.
of darkness.
Yeah.
He said, we'd give these guys LSD. They'd have these marathon weekends and they'd change. And they'd go back to the general ward that wasn't ready for the change. They'd be sweated right back. 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. If only the entire ward, every psychopath in the whole place could achieve the same metaphysical enlightenment at the same time, everything would be great. A mass LSD trip. It was radical, but it was critical. The only way to break down the deep pathology of the ward. He says he saw it as the culmination of everything that he had done. Given everyone, give everyone the rite of passage of LSD at the same time.
Did he
And
read
just let
Helter
him.
Skelter and was like, this is a good idea? Because that's what it sounds like. This sounds like Charlie on a nighttime being like, we're all going to take the same trip now, guys. Get ready.
Well, the best part is security staff was like, no, this is not a good idea. And he's like, just leave him alone. Just leave him alone. Let him be. So the guards were really pissed off and they were forced to stand back as like 40 serial killers and rapists just ran around en masse, off their tits on LSD. And so he said, I probably didn't play my cards properly there. I think
Oh,
the
dear.
guards lost their identity. The union guys were upset about it. And so he thought they sabotaged the program, but they raised like serious security concerns. I mean, these people were murderers. They were in there because they murdered people. That's why they were in there. They were dangerous individuals.
Dangerous people
And now
on
they're
a
on 300
dangerous drug.
micrograms of LSD, strong LSD. And so essentially what ended up happening is they complained and Meyer was transferred out of the unit. They canned him.
Good.
I
I
mean,
bet it was a great day when he left. I bet nobody got him cake. Nobody got him we're going to miss you card. I bet they were really happy to see the back of Gary. I would have been.
well, they, dissolved the social therapy unit. So it was all done. No more total encounter capsules, no more LSD treatments. It was all dismantled. So officially done in 1985, following all the negative criticism that they were getting. Um, you know, in later years, they went through like, decades later and did a retrospective evaluation of the STU programming. So it was done by, I think it was done by 1985. The social therapy unit was done, but the total encounter capsule was done by the late 70s. But they went through and they did an evaluation, like a retrospective on what happened. And they saw that some patients who participated in the program were released had lower levels of recidivism. But the psychopaths who went through the LSD treatment program had much higher rates of recidivism.
Oh,
In
you
fact, they
don't
said
say.
60 to 80% all reoffended as soon as they were released back into
Jesus.
society.
It's not
I mean,
surprising.
well, think about it. Flashbacks being chained naked to insane people. Yeah, that probably would cause me to reoffend.
It send you down a darker path than what you were already going to go down.
They'd make
I
the
would
shadow
imagine.
people return. Jesus. So yeah, 80%, an 80% rate of recidivism. Wouldn't say it worked out all that well. And so there are several particular cases. One, Cecil Giles here was declared cured and released after many intensive therapeutic sessions in the total encounter capsule. Within days of release, he grabbed a random 14-year-old girl, sexually assaulted her, and threw her unconscious from a bridge into a creek. She managed to, she survived. She crawled to a nearby house and hid and was found later that night lying on the kitchen floor. She survived, but she has severe scars from like where her head hit the bottom of the creek.
Ooh.
Another patient, Joseph Fredericks, was released from Oak Ridge 1983. He also went through the Total Encounter Capsule program. Within weeks, he attacked a teenage girl with a knife, sodomized a 10-year-old boy. He was then released again a year later, attacked another 11-year-old boy. And after being released 4 years after that, he headed to a mall called Shoppers World, where he abducted and raped another 11-year-old boy, Christopher Stevenson, who wrote a note to his parents saying, "Dear Mom and Dad, I'm writing you this note." And that was it. That's the note stopped after that. It was
Oh
getting
wow.
sodomized. Um, when the
That's so
police caught Fredericks, he showed them the boy's body and he said, "He was such a nice boy. Why did he have to die?"
Oh wow. That is dark.
But the most discomforting for the program was what happened with the multiple child killer, Peter Woodcock. I think we got a picture of Pete, don't we?
Dude, Peter is famous. I know his case.
So this was the guy that Steve Smith, the car thief, was attached. He woke up attached to him. This is the guy who's going to be his spirit guide through the LSD trip.
Can I say he's not unattractive though? Obviously in spirit he is, but like he kind of has a look of like Matt Damon.
I was about to say it looks like Matt Damon.
Damon. Yeah, he's kind of like nowadays this look. He just looks like he's going to like see like Blur live, doesn't he?
Kind of, but you can tell just looking at that glazed expression, you just think about raping kids
He's thinking about little
and
children's
murdering them.
assholes.
And
Yes.
murdering them.
And murdering them afterwards.
Imagine just like passing out during an LSD trip, waking up chained to this guy. He gained notoriety in the 50s in Toronto for murdering and sodomizing 3 young children. And then later in 1991 with this murder of a man named Dennis Kerr. So Woodcock, when he was going through the program, didn't respond well to these treatments. And he was not an ideal prisoner. He engaged in coercive sexual acts, exploited his fellow inmates, who were often much less intelligent or less sane than he was. He had convinced inmates that he had contact with an imaginary gang called the Brotherhood, who were on the outside. And so he'd tell these people who, for all intents and purposes, were rotundos, that they could be initiated in the Brotherhood, but they had to perform oral sex and get him cigarettes.
That's that's high functioning sociopathic behavior, isn't it? Completely.
He was eventually transferred to a less restrictive institution and ultimately arrived at the Brocksville Psychiatric Hospital. Here, staff indulged his passion for trains by taking him to a Smiths Falls Railway Museum. They even took him to see Silence of the Lambs. That sounds like a great idea.
He's right. If he's a train spotter, nonce.
Yeah. Then he was transferred to Oak Ridge, where he went through the STU, the social therapy unit. During this time, he legally changed his name to David Michael Kruger, and he rekindled a relationship with Bruce Hamill, who is an Ottawa killer, who had recently been released from Oak Ridge and was a security guard at the Ottawa courthouse. Kruger convinced Hamill that the alien brotherhood would solve his problems if he helped him kill another inmate named Dennis Kerr. So in 1991, psychiatrists were like, you know what? We're going to give you your first full release from the facility. So he was allowed, he was let go. At this point, he was in Brockville. He was back at Brockville Psychiatric Hospital. And he was let go in 1991. And he had already been through the STU program twice. And so the psychiatrists didn't know that he had plans to meet up with Dennis Kerr, who had previously spurned his advances. He invited Kerr into the woods behind the hospital, and there he chopped him 100 times with a hatchet.
100
He said,
times.
yeah. During the trial, he said, I did it. I wanted to see what a hatchet would have, with the effect the hatchet would have on the body. He died as a result of chopping injuries to his head and neck.
Ouch.
And so when he arrived there, Kruger initially didn't just chop him. He hit him on the head with a pipe wrench and he beat him into unconsciousness. And his buddy, possible lover there. Bruce Hamill is also there. Kruger and Hamill then seized the hatchet and knife that they had hidden and stabbed him and hacked him many times, mutilated his body, severed his head, and then sodomized the headless corpse. They took turns.
So gnarly.
Yeah.
It's like Ed Kemper having a bit of family fun.
Woodcock here, Kruger, then left the scene, walked to a police station, and turned himself in. And guess where they sent him? Back to Oak Ridge.
Hey,
And
no, no, no. Yeah.
there he was interviewed by the BBC actually about the murder. It's a great interview. I was looking for it. I was reading about it, but I wanted to watch it. It's called Mask of Sanity. I couldn't find it. The interview's most painful moment was when Woodstock admitted that Elliot Barker and Gary Meyer's program was kind of to blame. He said it taught him how to be a more devious psychopath. He said all those chats about empathy were like an empathy faking finishing school for him.
I
He said,
bet.
I learned how to manipulate better and keep the more outrageous feelings under wraps better. So it was almost like an advanced psychopath training school in a sense,
Yeah, I bet it would be.
you know? So it was weird. So at the time, when they first started the social therapy unit and the whole program there at Oak Ridge, I mean, it was groundbreaking and it didn't get a lot of negative attention. I mean, patients were allowed to, engage in therapy sessions with one another, leading these sessions. And this stood in stark contrast to all the psychiatric portrayals of the period. This is the 60s. This is like during One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest time, And Frederick Wiseman's controversial 1967 documentary, Titty Cup Follies, which is about the Bridgewater Hospital for the Criminally Insane in Massachusetts, which was just a terrible institution.
Yes.
And so here you had in Oak Ridge, you had patients running the therapy sessions, patients helping other patients. So it was kind of unheard of at the time. But then as the years progressed, they saw the deleterious consequences, the harm that occurred, the recidivism rate. 80% of these people reoffended. I don't think it was really helping them at all. So while some patients did actually have successful treatment and thrived in the environment, others argued it infringed on their basic human rights. And in 2001,
Did.
20 years ago, a class action lawsuit was filed against the government of Ontario, as well as doctors Elliot Barker and Gary Meyer on behalf of several patients from the program. And just last year, in 2019, or 2 years ago almost, a judge ruled that ruled in a lawsuit that medical doctors had tortured these patients over a 17-year period in unethical and degrading human experiments.
Well, of course, it doesn't take a doctor to realize that. It just takes a regular person. If you have to feed somebody food through a straw, there you already go. If you don't even have a toilet that is covered, there you go. You can sue the hospital for that. Even in the 60s, they should have known that.
Well, the justice here, Paul Perel of the Ontario Superior Court, he said he didn't think the doctors acted out of cruelty or malice, nor did he find that they breached medical standards of the day. But torture is a timeless wrong. And what he did is he tortured these inmates, by exactly what we just said. They were in confinement. They were administered hallucinogens, delirium producing drugs. They were fed through straws, confined handcuffed to each other for days on end, naked.
In an 8x10 cell. That is tiny. That's like a regular jail cell now. And now imagine 12 of you in that room. You couldn't even get up and walk around. They keep chickens better than they keep that.
Lawyers for the two doctors, Elliot Barker and Gary Meyer, declined to comment while the matter is before the court. The next stage is a drawn out lawsuit. It's going to be, they don't know exactly how much money, but there's 31 individuals who are suing, and they haven't specified what damages they're owed. But I mean, this is going to be, financial damages in the multi-millions. And some of these recipients are some of the most vile serial killers, psychopaths, and sadists you can even think of. And they're going to cash in, suing the government, of Ontario, not to mention this hospital, the Waypoint Center, and these doctors themselves. It's interesting too that Justice Burrell said that these doctors breach their fiduciary duty, obligations that individuals have when they hold power over another, you know. And so that wasn't, and that there's no statute of limitations on this. There is a statute of limitation on medical malpractice, but not over, this obligation. I mean, in a sense, it was torture, is what happened here.
Yeah, I
Um,
know you were saying that some of these like the worst psychopaths, but some of these were also just kids who were in
yeah,
there for stealing cars and who have probably had their lives absolutely ruined and
and
do
then
deserve money
you
for
have this,
this.
authority figure coming up to you, being like, "I can help you. You
And at
might be locked up in
18.
here for 30 years. I'm going to help you get out of this program." It's like you're 18 years old.
So are
What do you
either of
even
these
know?
two doctors going to face time in jail themselves?
I think it's a class action lawsuit, so I think it's just financial damages.
Yeah, well, that's a shame because they should go and sit in an 8 by 10 cell and be told what to do for quite some time, I feel. They broke the Hippocratic Oath, the way I see it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think they intentionally did this out of malice. Like, I don't
No,
think
but
they're trying to torture them.
they've done something where even if they can say what they've done is also psychotic because in their mind they've turned round and been like, oh, what I'm doing is helping them. And at no point is there anything on this where I could be like, yeah, I can see where they're going with this. This is all, it's all torture.
He was Dr. Barker wrote a paper or journal or something on how his treatment differed from the Third Reich experiments.
If you have to compare your treatment to the Third Reich, if you're already at that point, doctor, then there's something wrong here, mate. There's something
That's a,
wrong.
that's pretty much what the judge said.
Yeah. Good.
Now,
Easy.
you know, I think it would be remiss to say that the psychedelics, use of psychedelics in treatment, always has a negative consequence. And I think they're finding that now that psychedelic assisted therapy is called PAT therapy is being used again. Doctors are using like drugs such as MDMA, ketamine, psilocybin,
Yes.
microdosing mushrooms, LSD, and even ayahuasca to treat like an array of mental health issues. Alcohol dependency, nicotine dependence, anxiety, depression.
Yeah, but they're not
It,
giving them 300 milligrams, are
well,
they?
micro no, it's
Yeah.
it's definitely managed doses. I know Harrison
Completely.
was microdosing psilocybin for depression, and he
Yes, but
he
he
found
was.
it.
Let's take that back though. He was doing that by himself as a man, just going, "I'm gonna take some mushrooms today." It's not like a doctor has prescribed him a specific amount of like medical grade psychobilin every day and said, "Here you go, my friend."
No, he wasn't. Yeah, it's not like he had
Yeah,
a prescription for psilocybin, but he had like he did study go online, and he was like,
yeah, and he figured it
measuring
out,
out doses, and
and it,
he was also with experimentation, realizing that a certain level of psilocybin actually made him feel better and less depressed. I don't know if he kept on with it or not, but that's the thing. It's like you can't just say like, well, I gave him LSD. That's crazy. Maybe it was. Maybe the setting, the circumstance was a little insane,
I can
naked
see the
psychopaths.
I can see the
But
benefits of giving someone LSD, but yes, in this situation, giving them such large doses of it and then confining them to a tiny cell there is no part of that where you are not going to freak out.
exactly. But, it's interesting to see what's going to happen with psychedelic assisted therapy and what it can be treated,
Oh, of
what it can treat in the
course.
future and how it can be used going forward. But yeah, hopefully it won't be used, you know, like Dr. Barker and Dr. Meyer used it. God, I can't think of a worse trip.
I can't, if somebody said to me, "Oh, are you hungry?" I was like, "Of course." And they said, "Just suck this straw." I'd rather die. I'm not sucking food through a straw. Even when I'm an old lady, I'm not doing it, man.
But go check it out. The Psychopath Test is a pretty interesting book written about these experiments.
Yeah, I'm gonna
People, this
read the
is
book.
episode 781 here, Sick and Wrong. We have some news stories coming up next. But first, here's a word about our Patreon page. That was pretty interesting.
What a crazy story. That's like so
Yeah,
six.
no,
That's like my mother's generation.
it's fucking crazy, though. It's just, it's crazy enough with that Dr. Barker. But then
Yeah,
the
but
other
it's
guy's like,
scary.
no, let's just do it like with 40 people. Let's get
Let,
them all fucked up.
let's double it, guys. These psychopaths, they need their minds expanded, man.
Fucking weird story. All right, I gotta take a piss and we can. Okay,
Yeah,
it's already 4 in the morning. God damn it. Ow.
There was a guy saying here, why would you delete my comments? I don't know
Who
what he's
deleted
on about.
comments?
I don't know who's deleting comments. But then Multi Twatman says, what if the global vaccination program is really a slow release LSD program? I'd be down for that.
Maybe. It could be mind
Yeah,
control. It could be killing Jew sperm, like Kate thinks.
that's what I think it is. And that's why your testicles have expanded.
You would think they
Yeah.
would shrink if all my sperm was being destroyed.
No, because I told you there's a battle going on. It's kind of like Imagine Star Wars. There's like lots of battleships just shooting at each other right now. Lots
I'm
of
3
lasers.
seconds 3 seconds away from pulling my balls out. All right.
So, the video will get demonetized, dude. It already is.
Hey, sure, I'm not really here is here. I got a good story coming up. I have a good one. But I gotta step away for a second. How's everybody doing out there? Do you guys like do you like to be chained up with some psychopaths? It's a fucking crazy story though. It's fucked up. Who's on here? Ooh, Ash, you got the vaccine. Yeah, Sandy, I agree. That's the thing with herd immunity and these people in Texas. So the people that don't get the vaccine, if you're vaccinated, you still can carry the virus. So if you're vaccinated, you still carry the virus. So all the unvaccinated people are definitely at risk. It doesn't lessen the risk for them. What lessens the risk is if we're all vaccinated. So, yeah, I don't know. Global vaccination program. I guess there's reason to be suspicious here. The taint studying. Stare at the taint. No, actually, I haven't seen that. Oh, on August Ames, huh? Gotta check that out. I'm gonna write that down. Yeah, fucking everybody has a podcast these days, don't they? God. Who doesn't have a podcast? That's what I want to know. I have totally wanked to August Ames before. Why did John Ronson interview her? Like, what was it about? Oh, he didn't interview her. She's dead. She committed suicide. So he's just talking about her suicide. I forgot. She was. Do you remember? There was like a week or not a week, like a year where there were like 3 porn stars. All snuffed it. Not sure why. Was she? What was the deal? Why did August Ames kill herself? Internet bullying and cancel culture. God, cancel culture.
What
You
about
know her
that?
real name? August
Yeah.
Ames' real name is Mercedes Grabowski. She's a porn star that killed herself. And apparently, John Ronson, who wrote the psychopath test, wrote a book or interviewed her, or talked about her on a podcast. Oh, he interviewed her husband. She hung herself. Yeah, a few overdosed.
Okay, and Deadbook does a really good series about death by porn. I think he's done about 10 of them now. So she'll be in one of them.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But you remember, was it like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when they were like fucking 4 porn stars all snuff themselves?
Maybe.
Yeah, it was weird.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of porn stars, very few of them are mentally stable. To put it the nice way. Some of them are made for the business, and some aren't.
Some can't hack it. Like
Yeah.
you can tell Ryan Keeley made for the business.
Yeah, someone like Nina Hartley, made for the
Yeah.
business, and like it's not like they fell into it.
she also has the business acumen. Like 'cause she like
How
manages
to
her own
sell
business and
herself. Yes.
yeah, and how to do it. Yeah.
Oh, that girl that all the Me Too people got on about. Yeah,
Yeah,
she was
August
like,
Ames. I gotta
yeah,
take a piss. I'll be back.
she was wanting like fucking Gucci and all that crap, and then for some reason they were trying to say that it was poor her when it like kind of wasn't. Like, if you're gonna do stuff like that, yeah, you might fucking die from it. It's a side effect, isn't it? So don't be surprised. You can hear D having a piss. Yeah, Ryan Keeley added me on Instagram. It was cute. I was excited. I was like, oh my god, Ryan Keeley. So I added her back. Now I get all her saucy Instagram content. Although it's obviously saucier on Twitter, isn't it? Where you can have tits and bush out on Twitter. Bring that back over onto Instagram. It was a terrible move when Facebook and Instagram merged. Yeah, she was lambasted for it, but again, if you're gonna play in that world where you're putting ropes around your neck and doing breathing stuff, don't be surprised if you fucking die from it. My cat was trying to claw his way into the door.
Checkity check check.
I hope you couldn't hear my cat trying to claw his way into the door during that.
Oh really? I can hear it.
Good.
But during
It's
the
annoying
intro?
because there's like yeah, during the topic, because there's like a
Oh.
little there's an inch gap, so he can stick his paws underneath the door, and then he just like goes like this or like this on the carpet, and it's comical to watch, but he's like rattling
Is
the
it
door.
loud? I couldn't hear it.
I can hear it, and I obviously can see it, and just see his little arms flailing through the door. But when you let him in here, all he'll do is he like walks the cell yard, and then he just walks like back out again. He's just been a little dildo.
He can just hear you. That's why.
Yeah, he does just want to be near me. He's a weirdly
All right.
needy cat.
You ready?
Yeah.
So first story we have here came in from Chris. Chris writes, "Hey D, deadly cock in the cock." Much love, Chris.
The emails you get are so fascinating.
Yeah. They're so eloquent, you know. An Indian man is killed by his own rooster in a cockfight. Yep.
Nice.
Killed by a cock in a cockfight. The unusual death of a man impaled by his own rooster has drawn attention to illegal cockfighting in India. So
I imagine there's several countries where cockfighting still.
I didn't realize India. I just never thought India would be a big cockfighting country.
Did you not? Of course it is. Whenever
Well, I
you read
always
the
pictured-
cockfighting stories, they come from India.
It's always Mexico or Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
I
big
just never would have
cockfighting.
thought. I guess India is not that far from Southeast Asia.
Well, it is in Asia, D.
Yeah, so more or less,
India
I guess.
is an Asian
But
country.
but I always think it's like Vietnam is where they do all the cockfighting. I just didn't think India.
Yeah, no, it
But,
occurs
You
there.
know,
for
makes
sure.
sense. Kate's gonna hate this one.
I will
She
hate
loves
this one.
birds.
I love birds, and chickens are in like my top 5 birds.
I mean,
love a
I
chicken.
don't get me wrong, I'm not a big fan of birds, but I don't have the stomach to ever go see a cockfight or a bullfight for that matter. I had a chance when I was in Spain to go see a bullfight, and I was like, a couple of my friends are going. I was like, I'm not going to go do that. I don't
never.
even want to see that.
No, I would never.
No
You know,
interest in
when they do that running of the bulls, that stupid ceremony
In
where-
Pamplona.
yeah, we're all the fucking bro jocks boys. We run for
Idiots.
bulls, yo. Whenever the bulls just fucking nail them, I'm like,
I love when you see a picture of like, you know, on the rare occurrence that a
Oh, yeah.
matador gets gored right in the
"Ugh,
dick.
yes. Yeah,
It's
I
like,
love that. Or up
Get
the
'em,
ass.
bull.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, like a horn right up the ass. So a fighter rooster here killed its owner in the southern Indian state of Telangana over the weekend. The victim's a 45-year-old poultry farmer called T. Sathaya. He frequently put up his bird up for local illegal cockfights. So he had like a champion bird. He had a fighting bird.
His cock is
Um,
like the best cock in town.
He had a powerful cock.
Very
He
powerful.
bled to death after his cock, rooster, armed with a 7 centimeter long knife strapped to one of its claws. Because that's the thing, they strap little
They
knives and like
do.
barbs and weapons to his claws. It impaled Sathya in the groin when it
Oh,
struggled to free himself. So it sliced his todger off, just straight
like,
up, like
good on this
sliced
cock.
his todger.
I'm proud of this
Cock,
cock.
slice the cock.
He's a cock slicing cock. He's
This
good.
death of Sathya here gave a peek into how wildly popular and violent cockfighting remains in parts of India, despite it being banned since 1960.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, the practice is banned, but in rural India, cockfights are a popular source of entertainment, especially during the winter harvest season. Raghurama Krishnu Raju, a political leader industrialist from the southern Indian state of Andhra Pradesh, is a big fan, and he's a politician. Um, he says cockfighting has been around for thousands of years. Back in the days, there used to be cockfights between like different kingdoms. It's part of our lives. In 2018, Raju sought to end all restrictions on cockfights in the state. And his home district of West Godavari is famous for offering the Super Bowl of cockfighting.
Oh my word. Never thought I would ever hear a phrase like that, but
Well,
here
that's what
we
I was
are.
wondering. Like, being that there's cockfighting, obviously in India and Asia, probably in Russia, I'm sure, and do everything in Russia, Mexico. Do they have like some kind of World Cup?
For the cocks, a cock World Cup,
World Cock.
where you would get on an airplane with your cock and you and your cock would fight under a
Yeah,
Mexican
you'd
cock.
bring your cock to like the different countries. So, like, if India was hosting the World Cock Cup, you'd bring your cock to the World Cock Cup, and then they would fight, and you'd get the World Cup for cocks
I think it's this
fighting.
now. I don't think they're as organized as they think they are. This is like dog fighting, isn't it?
Well, this
Same
is the
level.
most organized I've ever heard. I had a friend that went to an LA a cockfighting thing in LA in East LA.
Oh,
I mean, it
yeah.
happens here. It happens here for
Yeah.
sure. But this is the most organized I've ever encountered. A Super Bowl of cockfighting.
The Super
I mean,
Bowl
that
of
that sounds like a
cockfighting.
managed event, like an
Do you oh
organized
my
event.
god, can you imagine the little halftime right? So for the halftime show, do you think it's just really cute chickens in like little cheerleader outfits and they're just like Baka! And that's the
I,
halftime show. It's just chickens.
well, I was wondering if it's a Super Bowl of cockfighting. I figured they would get like, the bands who would play like Trump's inauguration, like Ted Nugent or Kid Rock to
Yeah.
fly out there because they got money.
Do you think there would be a bean dip and a spinach dip and some
I'm sure.
chips
I'm sure the
and
Nude would play the Super Bowl of cockfighting.
I want to see the halftime show with all the cute chicks in little cheerleader outfits. I would
He
pay to
says
see
for
that.
many people, rearing birds for fights is their only source of income. It's a great sport, but the knives do add the element of cruelty. Without the knives, it should be an acceptable sport. So what? They just rip each other apart with their
It,
claws and beaks.
well, yeah, that's how it would be a much longer death.
Yeah,
Either way, I
probably
am
much
not
more
approving
brutal
of
and painful.
cockfighting. I do not approve of this. Like,
Um, Cockfighting in India is actually an elaborate affair. Never occurred to me, but it assumes the form of a carnival. There's elaborate battlegrounds that are erected. Multi-million-dollar bets are placed. Liquor flowing in abundance, and during the bouts, the winner takes home all the prize money, and the losing cock dies.
no. Dies
The
a
losing
hero's
cock
death.
dies.
Oh.
I was wondering, like, do they eat them? Do they eat the cock? The ones
They
that
will.
die?
They probably will. No, because they'll be trained cocks. I imagine they probably have like little elaborate funerals for them. They probably sail them down the River Ganges on a cute little like plyboard.
They're very hungry people. It's a third world country. I'm sure they're eating the cocks.
These people won't be eating the cocks if it's making them all this money, like this guy
Well,
says.
no, the ones that die,
Oh
the
yeah, not
the
the ones that
losers.
die, but I
Yeah,
imagine
yeah.
that they have backup cocks for when their cocks die.
Raju said the most fascinating peculiarity of cockfights is that this bird is the only one that fights until death, adding that that's part of the thrill. The cruelty is
Well,
the thrill.
that's all animal fights, isn't it?
True sadist.
When you put a dog in the ring against another dog, is it not until death?
I don't know. I don't know if I don't know much about animal fighting, but I've when I was a kid in high school, we used to get really high and go to the Myers and take the beta fish and pour the beta fish into the other fish tank, and they
Did
would just rip
you?
each other apart. Yeah, it was
That is
great.
so awful. I can't believe you did that. You're gonna
The
go to fish
Chinese
hell
fighting
for that.
fish.
I love beta fish. They're so friendly and colourful. Why would you
Yeah,
do
we get in a
that?
lot of trouble because they would fight. It was great.
This is what happens when boys are unsupervised. You always should have one girl in your group to make sure this shit doesn't happen.
There was a girl that enjoyed the beta fights.
Don't lie. Was she fat and ugly? That's why she couldn't.
I think
She
she was
didn't
a
have a
lesbian. She
boyfriend.
later came out to be a lesbian, but
Yeah.
still,
There you
enjoy the
go.
beta fights. But yeah, they fight until death, and that's what Raju enjoys. Spoken like a true sadist here.
Yes, he
He
likes the
said,
death.
I like this part though. He's like, but people kill birds for food anyway, and that's cruelty. There's some false equivalence going on there.
Yes, mate. Yeah, okay.
But
Again,
I
try and
get I
justify it.
I get where he's coming from on that though. I mean, being a vegetarian, it is cruel.
Well,
Um,
yes. But it's not like these birds are in this situation because they're like, oh, yeah, we were once battery farmed hens and now we fight to the death. We are
yeah, it's like
raised to fight to the death.
I'm hoping, I mean, I still think it's awful that there's factory farming and they're killing animals like that, but I'm hoping that it's somewhat humane the way they end these animals' lives rather than like putting them in a ring with a bunch of knives like attached to their legs so they can kill each other.
For a bunch of men's entertainment. I bet you it's a
Screaming.
lot of men at these events watching the cocks fights.
I like this. He said, surely the sport is not as risky as Jallikattu.
Oh, is
It's
that
an Indian sport in which men try to grab the hump of a bull's back and hold on to it for entertainment.
that should also not be allowed?
What is this like an Indian rodeo? I wonder if they wear cowboy hats. Like
I hope they do.
as long if the bulls aren't getting killed, I would watch Jallikattu. Seems
No,
like there'd be more human casualties than animal ones.
I don't want to watch that because you know that those bulls aren't kept good. And bulls can be very affectionate animals if you let them. You know what
I don't
scene
get
I
it. They're
love?
just grabbing the humps.
You know what scene I love in Kingpin when he's like, oh, he gets up early, Woody Harrelson. He's like, and I went and he's drinking the milk from the pail, and he's like, oh, I got up early and I milked your cow. They're like,
I'm
we
like,
don't have a cow. We only have a bull. And he's like drinking all this milk.
Animal welfare activists have been denouncing cockfights for decades, and as well as the penalty of 50 Indian rupees for those convicted of animal cruelty. You all know how much 50 rupees equates to in US dollars?
Like 50 cents?
68 cents.
Right.
So if you
Yes,
get
but what's their, I was
caught,
going to say, what is their daily wage though? Because like that could be crippling to you if you're not making
I
50
guess, yeah, I don't know
rupees.
what the
Yeah.
Indian daily wage is. But cocks aren't the only ones dying from these cockfights. Last year alone, 3 people were killed by fighter birds.
Brilliant.
January 2020, a 50-year-old man was stabbed to death by a fighting blade before a bout. Seems to be a common way to succumb to death by chicken. Another man died when the bird's blade cut his ankle. This is in the Western Indian state of West Bengal. And then in June, a rooster jockey, I love that term, rooster
A
jockey,
rooster
that's what they're
jockey.
called, bled to death in the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu after a bird cut his thigh during a bout.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, isn't every man a rooster jockey, or is every woman, or is every straight woman who has to deal with a cock a rooster jockey?
Or I guess when you're riding a cock,
You're a
a
rooster jockey. Yeah, I'm gonna add that to my CV of things I'm good at. Rooster
So
jockey.
gambling is banned in India, but it's a key part of cockfighting. In Andhra Pradesh, cockfights earn an estimated $130 million a year.
That's
I mean, it's
crazy.
huge. Yeah. It's like it's a very popular event. And most of the participants are farmers without a consistent income. So many of them spend their entire year's income on, training this fighting chicken and buying blades and all this in hopes that they'll win. I wonder if they give them steroids or
Indians,
like performance enhancement drugs.
you can get any drug in Indian pharmacies, so it would not surprise me if these birds are just loaded up on the steroids.
Well, like sometimes you see those pit bulls that are just like you see them around
Oh
here.
yeah, when they're just
You see 'em just ripped, like these
yeah.
yoked out pit bulls. So I wonder if the same thing goes with cocks.
These are like the pit bulls of the bird world.
So most parts of India, cockfights are clandestine affairs. But over in Andhra Pradesh, these bouts are openly advertised on local newspapers and TV channels. So I mean, it's like a big advertised event. And Indian authorities typically look the other way when a cockfight's endorsed by a politician. So if a
Which
political
he
leader's
is.
like, it's okay, they're like, we're not going to do anything about it. But recently, in recent years, organizations, including the Humane Society, have sought to track these cockfights. And many of these cockfighting events, they've found, are being streamed in real time to enable online betting. So people are betting on these things online. So would you personally, would you rather your boyfriend be a football hooligan or a cockfighting hooligan?
Well, I'm English, so obviously I'm used to the football hooligans. Bring that on all the live long day. Let's bring the firms back. Let's bring all the firms back. Let's put the Grolsch tops on our sneakers and go and like leather some cunts. No, these people are cocks, man. They don't even have a choice. And like then now they're getting knives strapped to their feet and they have to fight until death. Like at least like for factory farming, you and me are both vegetarians. But at least, yeah, the majority of those chickens are gonna get eaten. This is what you like to think. These
Well, I'd
birds,
like to think they're killed humanely. I
they
mean,
are like
I try not
in a
to think
way,
about it, but
but these birds are born to die, which is really sad. In a savage way, in a savage manner, for our
blood sport.
entertainment. It's a blood sport. It is.
Animal rights advocates link cockfighting with other illegal activities apart from gambling, such as the use of child labor. Children are employed to serve illicit alcohol and food to visitors. They're also tasked with cleaning up the blood after the matches. They then pluck the feathers of the dead roosters for the winner to take home.
Well, the little hands can get into all the places where all the blood has spilled, like easier than the bigger hands. I can understand that.
Makes me wonder. So, if you have like a winning roosters, or do you have a wall of just the feathers of all the dead
All the
cocks?
dead, yeah, you will. You'll just have your dead cock
That's your
trophies
trophy,
on the wall.
cockfighting trophy.
So I wonder
That's a
if there are.
thankless job, though.
I wonder if you
Cleaning
just
up the blood.
fight your cock. Because if you're earning all this money, would you not just like retire with your cock and be like, we're partners
Well,
now?
if you're, yeah, I mean, if your cock made that much, I mean, if your cock was a champion, like Muhammad Ali of cocks,
Yeah, a champion cock. Would you guys just not retire together and be like, I'm now going to give this like champion cock the best life it deserves, and just I
yeah,
don't know,
well,
let it get some chickens and shag them all the live long day.
you probably would breed it, don't you think?
Yeah, you
So
could
you
breed it and
could
then
get
sell those cocks.
well,
Um,
or fight, or have like a whole fleet of cock fighting
a fleet
cocks.
of cocks. That's
But
it.
could you
Me on a
imagine though,
Saturday
like
night.
I wonder if the kids, if that's like a good job though in India, is like cleaning up the blood on like
Well, would you rather be
in the
sewing
arena.
clothes for Primark, or would you rather be cleaning, serving adults drinks at a party? Don't most parents when they have kids and they have a party in their house, they make their kids help. So it's technically the same thing. It's
Yeah,
just
but
there's
there's
cocks
okay,
involved.
there's serving drinks versus cleaning up the blood and plucking the feathers out the dead rooster. I'd much rather serve the drinks if I was given the choice.
I would prefer to serve the drinks too, but I mean, yeah, I'd rather
I'm
do
sure
that
either
than
one
sew
though.
clothes for Primark any day.
I'm sure all of those jobs don't have decent health care or 401k, you
These are
know.
illegal jobs, Steve. They don't have anything.
But this is truly a horrible crime, and obviously it's happening worldwide, and people are endorsing it by betting on it online. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly how it'll be stopped, but hopefully more roosters are willing to kill the rooster jockeys. I'm
If
hoping that
there's
happens.
if there's any cocks listening to this podcast right now, I just want you to know that there is a way out. There's probably a helpline number that you can ring in India if you're being abused by your cock owner. There's a future for you outside of the cockfighting world. Come to my
Take the power
house.
back.
Take the
Slice
power
off
back.
the rooster jockey's cocks.
Exactly. Me
That's what you
too.
do.
Take your power.
What do you have here for the second story?
So my second story also involves the death of cocks, and
Hmm.
that's two dead in Jefferson County in an Ohio murder suicide.
Did they have razors attached to their claws?
No, this is with big boy guns. Although
Oh,
imagine if you could train your cock to like work a little pistol. That would be quite. That would like elevate. That's the next level of cockfighting where they have like little pistols in their talons. I think you could do it. So this
Be kind of
occurred
cool.
in Steubenville. I'm saying that right, aren't I? Steubenville.
Is it Steubenville, Ohio?
That's how it's. I'm saying it.
Is it Ohio?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah.
Ohio. So
Steubenville.
there was a man in Steubenville who is still so angered over his breakup with a Bloomingdale area woman several years ago, and he brutally went and executed her current boyfriend, and then he took his own life. And I love
That's a
this
bitter
guy.
ex.
This is the Jefferson County Sheriff, Fred Abdallah, reporting. Isn't that a great name, Abdallah? It's a
It's
nearly
a weird name for someone who lives in Steubenville, Ohio.
Fred
Abdallah.
Abdallah. Yeah,
I think it's like sounds Arabic.
it's nearly yeah, it's nearly like something out of Indiana Jones.
I know Steubenville, Ohio is like in the middle of fucking nowhere. Like I'm surprised this Arabic guy ended up there.
So Abdallah said that the victim, 69-year-old Richard Miser of Jewett, Ohio, he was shot 6 times, with several of the bullets fired point blank into his head, while his girlfriend, the gunman's ex-girlfriend, she's not been identified, probably because of the fucking trauma, she was forced to watch.
Ooh, God, that's brutal. 6 times. Is the guy just a really bad shot?
Point blank. That's like boom, 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 boom. He must have had a semi-automatic. Don't at me about guns. I do not know fucking jack shit about guns. But
Well, shoot him
semi-automatic,
6
he
times
shouldn't
in the
be
head.
firing.
Yeah.
In the head, while your fucking ex is watching. So I love how it says the suspected shooter. It's like no, there's only one suspect here. Also 69. This guy called Terry Miller, and he's from the area too. After shooting this guy 6 times, he bravely, courageously turned the gun on himself, but not before telling his ex, the woman, that he should have killed her too. That was his final words.
So he broke into their house. He shot her current boyfriend 6 times, murdered him, made her watch,
69-year-old.
and then he sat down at the table, looked at her, he's like, I should have killed you too, and then just shot himself. Why didn't he shoot her?
Saved the last bullet for himself. I don't know. Maybe this is an ultimate form of like emotional torture, isn't it? Because she like imagine being her next boyfriend now after an event like this, and be like, oh yes, so what happened to your last relationship? Well,
There's some baggage there.
So he shot a person 6 times. 6 times. And he talked to the man while he laid there dying with 3 bullet holes in him, saying, why don't you die? And then he shot him 3 more times. America.
I just keep picturing like a George Costanza type guy with like these anger management issues that comes in there. He's like all pissed off, bitching for what, 6 years, 4 years after the relationship?
Several years ago.
Several years after the relationship that she's moved on. He's never moved on. He's probably middle age. Well, he's 69 in his 60s, balding, kind of probably paunchy. And then finally he's just like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. And he breaks in the house and he's just like, and you're going to sit there and watch. And then he shoots him and he just keeps shooting him. He's just like, why won't you die? God damn it.
Why
like freaking out.
I'm imagining more like an Al
A
Pacino
vein
type.
in his head.
I think Al Pacino could play this role.
Oh, I bet you he could.
Yeah, and it could
Al
show you
Al
the
Pacino could
lead
play
up.
any role.
Not any role, but yes, he can. Let's go for it. So after the suspect had shot himself at the dining room table, the woman called 911, and the deputies are already en route. And then his stepson also called the sheriff's department to report that his stepfather, had said to him that he's going to go and just kill a guy.
Wait, before he did all this, he gave his father or stepfather like an inkling here, like I'm gonna go kill this guy.
Yeah, he said to his stepson, he was like, I'm gonna go and kill a guy.
Oh, he called his stepson, and what does his stepson call the cops?
Stepson also called the cops to be like, yo, so my stepdad's missing, and he said he was gonna go and kill someone.
His stepdad's mental.
Yeah, the calls came in at roughly around the same time, about like 10 to 2 in the morning. So he went there late at night.
So, do you think he just went in there, got the job done immediately, or do you think he like sat down and had like a very awkward conversation at gunpoint with his
Well,
ex and her new boyfriend.
so the good sheriff is saying that they had dated for around 4 years. She'd moved on. She had a nice new boyfriend. Um, and he was upset about this. And he spent several years blaming this new boyfriend for ruining his life. He had also continuously threatened to kill her. And he's also continuously threatened that he would just show up at her house and he would turn the gun on himself. So I imagine that he snuck into the house and probably didn't have
Terror.
to say a fucking thing. I'm sure as soon as they both saw him, her stomach would have dropped and she was like, that's it, we're both dead here.
Did she like report him to the police? Like, do people know about that he was giving her threats like those?
Well, they must know if there's been claims about him. So he shot him 3 times. Then he sits down talking to his ex-girlfriend, who's probably absolutely pissing her pants. And then he goes over and shoots the guy 3 more times in the head. And he specifically told her to sit there and watch everything that he was doing.
God, this guy's mental. I wonder if I was the other guy and if I wasn't like a tough guy, I would have hired someone to take care of this dude. Not murder him, just beat the shit out of him.
Run him out of town or do something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I always think in this situation, if there's somebody who is like threatening your life, why don't you just move away?
Oh,
Just
fuck
get
that. She probably
yourself.
owns a home.
She might own
Like,
the
you can't
home,
just get
but
up and
like,
move.
if you genuinely feel that somebody, and this guy spent like several years harassing her, I'd move. There'd come a time where you're just going to call it a day and be like, why do I still live here when he knows where I live? I could just move away.
I don't know. I don't think I'd put my tail between my legs and run. I don't want to be chased out of town by this guy.
Well,
If
that's
I
where you
was her
end up
boyfriend, if I
dead.
was her, if I was her boyfriend, I would have taken care of business here.
Um, so the good sheriff, Abdallah, said there could have been more bloodshed, but the roads had been covered in ice, and that kind of um, it slowed the response time of his deputies, um, because obviously this guy could have shot the police too if they just showed up on time.
Well, I'm surprised he didn't murder her.
I am
I mean,
surprised
I,
about
I
that.
think why I kind of agree with you is probably that form of emotional torture. But it sounds like he just was going in there, wanted to kill this guy and her current boyfriend in front of her is like, you can't have, you can't be happy, basically.
So they recovered cards on this man's dead body. He had stamped them. They were ready to be mailed. Why he didn't mail them, I don't know. One was to an
Oh, like Christmas
ex-girlfriend,
cards or birthday cards or something?
like just like
Just greeting
letters.
cards. All
Yeah,
right.
one was to another
Hallmarks.
ex-girlfriend in Las Vegas. He fucking loves keeping contact with his ex-girlfriends, doesn't he? And another
Jesus.
one was to a family member in West Virginia. And in these letters, he was admitting that his life was miserable and he was blaming this unnamed woman for everything. He said he had to do it. He wanted to do it. He said he'd killed Misa 100 times in his mind and that the anger had been building.
God, what a bitter, resentful fuck.
Oh God! Imagine if like you're that ex-girlfriend in Las Vegas and you just got this fucking letter off him. You'd be like, "Oh, it's this fucking cunt again." Like,
Wouldn't you
oh,
be like, no wonder I broke up with you? You
no
pathetic piece
wonder.
of shit.
So, the good sheriff is saying here that the woman had initially had a protection order out against him after their breakup
Um,
4 years ago, but she had dropped it because it was 4 years ago. Um, this suspect, the guy who did the deed, his only other interaction with law was in the mid 80s when he was arrested and sentenced to 7 to 25 years in prison for drug trafficking.
oh.
So he is an ex-con. He's a 100% wanker. That's for sure.
But yeah, that's the thing though. This is an interesting case. It's kind of like it's in a sense, it's kind of like that Amy Nicole girl that I
Yes.
knew here that was murdered. She had an abusive boyfriend. They dated only for like a couple of years. It was a very abusive relationship. And she broke up with him. He stalked her for like a year or two, threats, things like that, threatening current boyfriends. She got a protective order against him. And then was lasted for like a good, I don't know, like 10 years or something, 10, something like that, 10 years. And then it just sort of, I think, expired. And she hadn't heard from him in a while. So it didn't matter. And then she saw him at an event that she was like a host or something at, or hostess at. And then he flipped out and caused a scene. Day later, broke into her house and killed her.
It's mental. The other
Yeah.
thing, I always think when you break up with someone as well, you don't talk to that person for at least a year. You've got to give each other both time to move on and just like forget about each other and to get like out of each other's lives. You do not contact that person again. If the other,
Unless you have to. I mean, if
unless
you
you
have,
have to,
yeah, if you have
like
to pick up your
obviously,
belongings or something, or
yeah,
you
I
have an
mean beyond
animal
that. I
that you have
mean
to
when the
get.
split is complete.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm not saying if there's children or any of that shit, but give each other time to fucking heal. If this like if somebody's doing this to you, where they're talking about coming out to kill you and doing all of that, just fucking move. Fucking change your name. Get a
I
fuck
think
away
I
from
think a
me.
person like that would be able to find you. This guy's obviously mental. I think he would track you down somehow. Probably knows
Maybe.
relatives or something, and he's going to be. The threat needs to be terminated. Put it that way.
I feel sorry for his ex girlfriend in Las Vegas as well. I bet she heard from him all the time.
God, yeah.
She
Is there a
just never
picture of this guy?
replied.
Do you see a picture of
There
him?
isn't.
All right,
I
I
can find
pictured
one.
George Costanza.
I'm picturing
George
it.
Costanza,
I'm thinking of Al Pacino in an award-winning role.
son of a woman.
I can't. Can you do that impression?
No.
I can't either. Damn it.
People, send your stories, podcast at gmail.com. We have some phone calls coming up next. 323-522-4032 is that number. I think we have one more losing virginity story.
Yes.
Yeah, the last one to play. Anyway, first, here's a word from Adam and Eve. All right, I gotta get beer.
Yes. I have a whiskey, so
You have a whiskey.
I got a whiskey. I got a bourbon on the go.
You know, I like to
Ready to
drink
go.
whiskey sodas, but I hate when you're at a bar. At the bar, one of my pet peeves, because whiskey soda is my go-to bar drink. You know, a whiskey, a little soda. Doesn't really matter. I'll do well whiskey. I don't even really care. But when you're at a bar and you're like, I'll take a whiskey soda. For some reason, they always think I say whiskey sour, which is my most hated drink. I hate
Oh,
whiskey sours more than anything else.
oh, I'm not too fussed about a whiskey.
I
It's not my
fucking hate
favorite
them.
whiskey cocktail. I love Manhattans.
Manhattans, I love. If they made me a Manhattan, I'd be cool with that. But I usually get maybe, I can't drink like 5 Manhattans, but I can drink
No,
5
no.
whiskey sodas.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's your forked Jewish tongue, and they just can't decipher what you're saying.
I don't know. Maybe it's also loud and you're trying to like
Why?
whiskey soda. I don't
Why
think a
don't
lot of
you?
people order whiskey sodas though.
You can also change that by saying a whiskey and soda water, please. Problem solved, dear. Have I
Well,
just
then they'll
solved
probably give me
something
a
for you?
whiskey sour and a water. You know what it's called? It's a highball.
What
That's
in?
what it's called.
Oh,
The
the
drink.
cocktail.
It's called a highball. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to start saying that. I'll take a highball.
I would just say a whiskey and soda water, please.
But then if I did that, they'd probably be here's a whiskey sour and a water. It's just like, no, fuck you.
A whiskey soda water. I just drink a whiskey and a little bit of water because I am an 80-year-old man. But when I'm wanting to get
As a,
fucked up, I just don't have any water.
you see, the thing is with me, I know I'm gonna be drinking several drinks. So I'll do 5 whiskey sodas. I'll have a pretty decent buzz. But if I was just drinking neat,
You
I
don't.
probably wouldn't have 5 whiskey neats.
No.
I'd probably
I
have
don't.
like 2 or 3 and maybe a
Yeah, and
couple
you have it.
beers.
I
Couple
was gonna
beers.
say beer and whiskey. That's what you order. You have a beer and a whiskey, and then you can leave. You can leave that place in like 2 hours with a good buzz
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
I would do yeah, I would do yeah, I would do whiskey sodas. I could do several of those before I get drunk.
Yeah. Depends on the whiskey as well.
AP, atheist preachers here?
Yeah, he's just checking in.
Oh shit. God,
He
what's
wa-
he doing? Is
he
he
wants
driving right now?
he
Is he with a
wants
lot of lizards?
he wants California cancelled. The last time I heard from
What?
him.
Canceled California.
Cancel California.
It's a bitch though. I can imagine having to fucking drive here all the time, like for your job.
Well, it's one of the reasons my dad left London was because he worked 5 miles away from where we lived, and it would take him 3 hours a day to drive because there was no tube there either, and there wasn't a bus because this was like early 80s when Thatcherism had hit London, so it wasn't as prevalent as it is now.
But God, 3 hours
Three
every day.
hours every day,
Every day.
hour and a
So
half
look
there and back.
at that.
5 miles, 5 fucking miles.
Fuck that in the ass. I would never do that. God damn it.
That was also the car that he drove into a bollard, and that's when he ended up in a coma, and when Roger Waters brought him that big old bar of chocolate.
A bollard.
A bollard.
My bollards are pretty big right now.
Stop talking about your bollards. People don't want to know about them.
My bollards?
People don't want to know about it. It's like you're gonna get them out now. Don't get your bollards out. His ISIS flag softly blowing in the wind. AP, are you still in California? Trucking.
All right. Right.
It looks like an ISIS flag when it moves. When it blows in the background, it's like an ISIS flag.
It is kind of like, well, not this one. The other one's more
No,
of
but
an
that
ISIS
one's
flag.
still ISIS-y as well. It's just the way they move. It's very ISIS.
Yeah, it's because it's like the cave is in the back.
Yeah.
It's also not flat. Like yours is flat.
Yeah.
You know, mine's not flat.
That's probably a part of it as well.
Yeah. I have to do this in my fucking kitchen because my bedroom, first of all, has way too much noise. But second, that fucking cat, that motherfucking cat would never allow me to do this because he'd be like bitching the whole time.
Wow. Would he putting his arms under the door and scratching?
You know what he does? He tries to grab the doorknob. So he just like fucks with the doorknob. It's way louder. It sucks.
Little shitbag.
Yeah, that little cunt.
You paid
All right,
a
let me
lot of
do a
money
quick.
for him.
I certainly did. Way more money than I should have. All right, let me see if
The good
you hear
one
this?
died.
Hey, fuckers.
Hey fuckers.
Yeah, that's really loud.
Hey fuckers.
Hey
All right.
fuckers. Oh, he's in Arizona. Arizona, where Waylon Jennings ended up living. One of my favorite country singers, Sanford Clark, is an Arizona boy.
Arizona.
Mhm.
You know, the rabbi had his first wasn't his official. He was a junior rabbi at a congregation in
Oh,
Arizona.
I thought that was gonna go somewhere else then. I thought you were gonna do like
his first getting laid, like his first blowjob or
that's
something.
what I thought you were gonna do. His first kind of hooker. But like it's ungodly hot in Arizona. I've never been there, but I know
God.
about it. It's like hotter than the sun in Phoenix.
I don't know if the rabbi ever got a hooker. We never talked about that.
Would he'd want a Jewish hooker though? You can get Jewish
It's got to be
hookers.
tough to get a Jewish hooker.
I don't know. Probably not.
Well, it's like you're regulating. I mean, you're limiting yourself.
Yeah, but you probably want a nice Jewish hooker. So you can
Nice
have something
Jewish
to talk
hooker.
about afterwards. So you can talk about the Torah for a few hours.
I want a nice Jewish hooker.
I want a Jewish one. Is she Jewish? Send her.
Have you guys seen the movie Wrong Turn? It's a horror movie. Kate, you got to watch that. Wrong Turn.
Yeah, I will.
No, it's, you know, I didn't know much about it. Didn't realize it was a remake. It's not like a remake of a 70s movie, though. It's a remake of a movie from the 2000s, which is odd.
Oh, that's weird.
It's really odd. Yeah, I've never seen the original, but this one was good. It was like about Appalachian rednecks, which you never really think about. Like the
I
Appalachians.
think about Appalachian rednecks.
You think about them?
I think about them, yeah, because I have a friend from the Appalachians. Hello, Jacob, who I know is not listening.
Yeah, it's like some teens go and hike the Appalachian Trail, and then dun dun dun, they encounter some hillbillies.
You know Bruce Campbell? He's
Not personally.
He's hiked pretty much all of the Appalachian Trail. Because is it 2,000 miles? All in.
Yeah, like first of
Really
all,
long.
I don't know why anyone would ever do that.
People die on the Appalachian Trail.
Fuck
as
yeah.
well. There are murders along it. It's like it's a thing. People
not
will
only
murder
do you. Yeah, we did a story where there was like a couple of hikers that were just like going there and hiking, going through it, spent the night. They were camping out in the middle of the night. This fucking like crazy homeless person came in and just stabbed right through their tent, stabbed the girl, stabbed the guy, and the other one girl, all like, stabbed like 4 or 5 times, managed to run down the hill and alert other campers. And it took like 10 people to restrain this guy.
Oh, fuck that. Fuck that. But Bruce
Fuck that in the middle
Campbell,
of the night.
he would if he was driving around, he would often just stop at a random bit and go and hike it, and he reckons he's hiked all of it now. I think he has. Bruce Campbell is not a liar.
He's the type of guy, Michigan guy, that would go hiking like that.
Yeah. But
can
he's
see
like
that.
not done it, people will do it where it's like, I'm gonna go and hike the whole fucking thing. He's hiked bits of it to the point where he's hiked it all. It's
I
like
have
here
zero
people do the
interest in doing that.
C2C because I live along Hadrian's Wall, and the C2C is a very popular thing, and that's where you do the one end of the wall to the other. And you can do it in about 3 days if you put like pedal to the metal. But why you would ever do it?
I don't know.
What's the point?
Fucking, don't you have like movies to watch or something? Weed to smoke?
Just yeah, fuck it. Why be outside? What's the point?
Naked psychopaths to be chained to do acid with?
Yeah, although there's none of that on the C2C. People also do the C2C because there's scenic pubs and hotels that you can stop in, and that's what they do. They don't camp. They stop in
Scenic
hotels.
pubs.
The scenic pubs, and they stop in the hotels.
All right, let's get some calls here. So, got a few phone calls to get to. 323-522-4032 is the number of that hotline. People, we need some good calls. Been unimpressed with the quality of the phone calls we've been getting recently.
Ooh, you're getting stern, Daddy.
I know. I've been like, I made a new fucking message, a very funny, very good message. One of the best messages you'd ever hear. A great, amazing message. And I don't think many people are listening to it right now. No, I'm joking. We actually have been getting some decent calls, but
yeah, your most outrageous stories, people. Come on. I know we've all been locked inside for a year, but
I'm trying to build a backlog,
Treasure memory banks. Bring it out.
We got a really good one from the WAD this week, though. I'm saving
the
it.
WAD. Yeah.
Yeah. And then another guy that was like, the guy that called in about the girl who was sending pictures of her butthole.
Okay.
That guy called back.
Yeah. I want more from Marshall Island, Tony. I always want to hear from you, Marshall Island, Tony.
Some of our Japanese buddies. There's a few Japanese guys there that have some good stories.
Has Adam rang back? I like Adam too.
Not since the last prison one. But anyway, 323-522-4032. Keep it under 3 minutes. This first one is a notorious caller. Calls in with a grievance that actually, I gotta say, I agree with his sentiments for the first time. It's the first time I think I've ever agreed with this caller.
Admin villain. We have one person dead who needs to be dead. It's Rush Limbaugh. It's a good thing. He's a hate monger. He's a Nazi. He should be dead. And everyone danced on his grave. And I've wanted him dead. That deaf motherfucker who was just a hateful asshole. Yeah, we're good. God damn it. We're happy that Rush Limbaugh's dead, and Trump should be dead too. Fuck them. That villain's better than you.
Yeah.
Bye.
That's probably the most words I've ever heard Bonavillain ever say.
I know they're always like 20-second phone calls, 30-second phone calls. But this is the first time I think I've ever agreed with Bonavillain about anything.
I do enjoy his entertaining phone calls, but this is the first time I feel that he's ever expressed a true opinion.
Well, he expresses his true opinion of hatred towards me.
Which like I can totally understand.
You're like, I can relate to that one.
I can relate to him on his feelings for that. But usually he's just ringing in to talk about like how many guns or houses he owns. But this is the first time I think he's ever given a real opinion about something.
Well, he and I are in agreement over this. Like,
I'm
kind of like,
too.
You know what, Bonavillain? I agree.
Rush
Limbaugh was a fat, hateful Nazi fuck.
I like how he threw in Trump at the end.
Yeah,
but then he had to hang up in case like his mum was listening. Trumper. He was like, oh shit. she could hear me upstairs.
Mom heard me swearing on the phone.
Yeah, oh, shit.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised. Like, did you think Bonavillain would hate Rush Limbaugh and Trump? I don't know.
No, I would have thought that he would have been all about the Trump and
yeah, I mean he owns 30 homes in fucking Colorado.
He owns streets. He owns the
streets. He owns the streets. He owns the homes.
He has like a gun. If anyone can tell me about semi-automatic weapons, even though I don't want anyone to bother, It would be Bonavillain.
He's got an arsenal of weapons. He's
He
got
has
like
an
20
arsenal.
cars. Most people who have an arsenal of weapons, 20 cars,
And a
own
street.
multiple homes, tend to like Rush Limbaugh and Trump. So I'm a little surprised.
Yeah. Wow. Bonavillain has some secret class that he's in hiding from us.
Yeah, no, it definitely hit me from left field, that call. So it was good to hear from you, Bonervillain, and good to be in agreement with you for once.
Bonavillain is not going to enjoy this.
No, he's
I
not.
think he's baiting you out. And next time he's going to ring back and it's going to be
He'll
very
be back to
hateful.
form. Yeah, he'll be back to
Yes.
form.
Well, I
but
do enjoy his hate towards you. So
I am a little surprised though. This next call is actually an interesting one. Remember that guy Gino called in about
I
his
love
mom?
Gino. Yeah, Gino's great. I love Gino.
Well, here he has a story for us.
Nice.
Hi, Dean K. It's Gino again. Sadly, this isn't a mum's story. This is a story about my mate. He was, as a young man, he was quite prolific in the old masturbating or wanking, as we say, sort of territory.
You won awards?
He used to have, I guess he was about, I don't know, let's say 16. And he had an old vest he had from when he was, I don't know, about 6. And apparently that's what he used to splurge into, like over years. He kept it under his bed.
It's his cum rag.
He had a wank vest.
Well, I mean, I have a towel that's specifically for the men's cums. It's just the same thing.
Yeah, but do you use anything for your cum? Like, do you use like a towel that you lay down? Like, do you have like a sweater or something
I'm not
that
a
you
sweater.
wear?
Oh, are you talking about like the sweater of Wackerly? No, I'm not. I'm
Oh, yeah,
not a
why no
sweater.
Wackerly
I
does.
don't need to like fucking have a beach towel underneath me. when I have
Wait, okay,
sex.
wait. Do you keep the same cum towel that you've had for every guy the past like 10 years?
The towel is over 10 years old. Let me say that. Yeah.
Is it
It's-
dry and crusty?
No, I wash it, and it's
Okay.
just the perfect size, and it's like a texture and ugliness that I don't like. So that's why it became the cum towel. And now I just can't ever replace it because I'm so frugal. Why would I ever replace it? It works.
But it's also like full of men's cum. Like,
No,
is it
'cause I
just right by
wash
your
it.
bed?
Yeah, it's very close to my bed.
Is it like underneath the bed or is it in like your nightstand?
I have an is it an armoire at the end of my bed with all my tricks in, and the cum towel is in there.
See, my problem is I usually just use one of the dish towels that's over here. And then
That's
sometimes
worse.
I forget which dish towel I've
Towel.
used. And I'm just like, wait a second. And so, you know, I'll wake up in the morning, I'll be all hungover and I'll grab the dish towel and we're like, wipe off a dish. And I'm like, wait a second. Is this dish towel the cum towel? I need to pick a towel that I
You
use
do.
specifically for that
Be-
purpose.
Yeah, well, that's what I did because this texture of this towel I do not like, and I was like, men can wipe their dicks on this because I don't want to even wipe my face on it, and that's why it became the cum towel.
Wackerly didn't have a sweater that he wore when he masturbated or a sweater that he came all over. He came all over a girl's sweater and put a rose on it. That was, we go into detail of that on the Patreon outtakes with Steele.
With-
Steele had
yeah.
never heard that story. I know we've talked about that story here in Second Wrong many times because it's one of my favorite Wackerly stories.
I also enjoy that story. I think it's
Hey,
very romantic.
Yeah, Kate found it very romantic that a man
I-
would take your sweater, come all over it, and then leave a rose on it.
I have a beloved Creedence Clearwater Revival jumper, and if I came home and I found that covered in cum with a rose, rose is also my favorite flower. Oh, I'd be like, this man is.
Would you
a
get
keeper.
married? You would
I'd
be
get
like,
married in
I'm
that
ready to
jumper.
get married.
I would not wash that jumper, and we'd get married like the next day. We'd go to
Would you
Gretna.
spread your legs open in the room, be like, stare at my taint?
Where all the negative emotions come from.
And yeah, his mum was ill one day, and his auntie came over to look after him.
Oh no.
And while he was out, he came
Getting
back,
a bit cold.
and he couldn't find his vest anywhere. He was looking for it. We wanted to knock one off, obviously. And he was, you know, obviously sentimentally attached to this dirty fucking vest full
His
of
cum
cum.
rag.
And
And especially at that age, it's just tons of cum. Think how
Oh
much
yeah,
cum.
loads and loads of cum. And he also, at that age, I highly doubt he knows how to use a washing machine. So it probably would have been like, you know, a bit of cardboard in the wind.
Yeah, no, I imagine it's like, yeah, tons and tons of cum. I had I remember when I was a kid, I had this old Poison t-shirt that I don't know, I must have got it like at a thrift store or something. It was always under my bed and I just like came all over that. And then I was thinking, I
Did
wonder
it
if
have
like
Bret Michaels' face on it?
the whole band,
You were coming on Bret Michaels' face.
the whole band,
You
CC, the
came.
whole band,
You came on every member of Poison's face.
every member of
I
Poison
cannot
multiple
believe that
times.
I have been on the
Yeah.
show for like 6 months and this is only just coming out now.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about that. I used to have this old Poison shirt, and it was just always under my bed, and then it just became like naturally became my jit gel rag. It's like my jizz rag. And then I was thinking, is that kind of gay to be jizzing all over Poison all
Yes.
the time? But they
Yeah,
kind of
that
look
is
like
kinda gay.
girls.
They do kind of look like girls, but they're also
Yeah.
still boys. And you would have had your eyes open as you were looking in Bret
Well, no,
Michaels'
typically I was
face
looking at porn and then I would just grab it and just
and
jizz
just
on it.
jizz
But the
into it, but you're
jizz was
still
all
looking at
over
them.
Poison.
Yeah, and you're
You know?
coming on a man's face. So that is kind of gay.
Yeah, it is. I was thinking about that. I've never been a fan of Poison either. I think that's why I
Why
jizzed
it
all over the
became,
shirt.
yeah. Well, if you're going to,
But it was one of the first concerts I ever came to when we moved here. Well, it was after I'd been here like maybe a year. And no, actually, it was the summer after I moved here. It was in 8th grade. Went to the show with a couple friends of mine, and I got a Poison T-shirt. And I just never was never a big Poison fan.
no, they're
But
a
I love to
terrible
jizz.
band.
I love to jizz all over them.
I
With
would
the-
probably jizz in anger over Poison because they are so terrible.
They're popular at the time.
And then he noticed that his room had been completely tidied up. In his absence, his auntie had decided to go through his room and tidy it up and clean everything.
No.
And he looked out of his bedroom window and he saw the said vest on the washing line outside.
So she found this crusty sweater, stiff as a board.
Yeah, this
And
little
we're just like,
six-year-old vest
I have
full
to
of
wash it.
a little living community of fucking cum on it, like probably going moldy with cum, and she washes it.
It's like a fucking sea monkey
So-
village or something.
If it's gay that you're coming on Poison, is this kind of incestuous? Because your auntie has now touched your cum.
Yeah, but she didn't
So-
like lick it or anything.
No, but she's touched it and had it in her hand, and then maybe she didn't wash her hands straight afterwards and touched her face. Like that's how you get the coronavirus. So is it incestuous?
So
in
you're
a way?
basically saying
Did he come on
his-
his auntie?
mate's auntie blew him, more or less.
Yeah, he's basically come on his auntie.
Yeah, I guess in a sense,
Yeah.
you know.
And yeah, that obviously means his auntie had taken the sticky vest and washed it.
Sticky
And he said that
Sweater
sort of
vest.
after that, the vest was never the same for him. Dirty boy. Aren't we all dirty boys at that age, though, I suppose?
And
All
now
right, take it
still
easy.
Gino. Hey, Gino.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. So afterwards, the sweater's ruined now that it's clean. Doesn't have
Yeah.
like years of cum buildup that just smell. Can you imagine the smell?
It would have gone moldy. wouldn't it?
Oh god.
You've got.
Well, I
clean
think it would
cum
be
rags.
I think it would just be dry and crusty.
Yeah,
it
but
probably had like a
it's-
certain texture.
I imagine he wouldn't have been folding it very nicely. I imagine he would have been splooging in it and then just crumpling it up and putting it back under his bed. And that's how the mold and bacteria will build up. So yeah, I bet it probably did fucking stink.
Well, sometimes though, it's depending on how they masturbate, guys get in these like weird routines, and that's the only way they can come. You know?
Women too. Like, it's a
Yeah,
people thing.
which can be kind of harmful. Like I mean, one of my ex-girlfriends,
course.
thing, she dated a guy who could only come when like it was like his dick had to be in between his thighs, and he had to be like jerked off with his dick in between his thighs and his legs up by his head. He couldn't come from just regular sex.
That is weird.
Yeah, well, I think it's just years of masturbating like that in that position.
I know, but at what point do you get to it where you're like, I can only come now if I'm doing that? That's
Well,
weird.
She said they would have sex, and they would have sex for a long time because he couldn't come, and so she would have like several orgasms. But then, in order to finish him off,
He had to do that.
had to do that. She wouldn't be able to, like, it still wouldn't work even if she was doing it. he had to put his legs above his head, dick in
And
between his
jerk.
thighs, and wank it. Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah, she was turned off by it. She
It is a
said.
turn off. At that
You wouldn't be
point,
into it?
no, at that point, I'd probably just be like, well, I'm gonna go for a piss, and yeah, I'm
Take
gonna
care
go
of
get a
business?
drink. While you're taking care of business, I'm gonna go for a piss, and like, I don't want to watch this.
Well, I would be like, put your face over my cock so I can spray it into your face.
Yeah, but I think he still wouldn't have come, would he?
Because you're ruining it. You're ruining it. Get out of the
you're
room.
ruining it. Yes. So
Give me my sweater vest.
I need your CCR jumper.
Oh, that's a great call. Thank you, Gino. Does your mate still have the vest?
Yeah, I'd like to know that.
That's what I'd like to know.
You're good crack, Gino. Good crack.
Yeah. All right, last call here. This is the last losing your virginity story. And I'm not going to say anything about it, but I have a suspicion about this one.
Oh.
Hey, fuckers. So you guys probably have plenty of virginity horror stories at this point, and I thought,
This guy's got a great voice.
I was just about to say
Doesn't he?
his voice is kind of making
Sounds like Waylon Jennings a bit.
it's making my pussy throb a little. It's quite sexy. I like it.
I'd call in
You want to borrow my poison shirt?
Yeah.
as a counterpoint
have
in
it
the
anymore.
true spirit of St. Valentine's Day with my own tender, romantic story of becoming a man. So the year was 1995 in Chicken Fucker, Indiana. And I was a pudgy, pale, underdeveloped 14-year-old boy.
Is this how they
Very
sound in Indiana?
Real, little homunculus of he.
I don't know if this doesn't sound like a typical Midwestern
I
accent.
was gonna say I'm moving to Indiana if the men sound like that there.
Oh God, it's a wretched state.
If they sound
Mike Pence was the fucking governor. Put it that way.
Well, I'm not moving there for Mike Pence. I'm ID. I'm moving there
Does
for
Mike
horny...
Pence sound like this?
No.
Being. And she was Melissa, my darling Melissa, my mountaintop, my peak, everything I had but couldn't keep. And she was around 35, stout, big shoulders, big hairy feet, big brown eyes that never seemed to point quite in the same direction, and just a mild case of Down syndrome. I met her through a group of friends
Is this
who
Gummo?
would.
Sounds like it. But aren't you kind of doubting the authenticity of this?
I am, but this guy is spinning a yarn, and I am along for this journey.
No, I like the
suspense-
yard.
My suspense of
You're-
belief
you're-
has been turned on. And
You're
I've been-
suspending your disbelief and letting it
am.
go.
I am.
All right.
because I am.
He's
turned
about
on.
to shag a retarded girl.
It's sexy.
over
gets
there
sexier by
Harry
the
to her
second.
place after school and sort of set off fire extinguishers and steal shit and eat all her food and just generally express themselves as the degenerate scumbags that God made them. So I ended up over there one afternoon with them, and I'm sitting around, and she's regaling us with stories of all the dirty anonymous sex that she's having, and the story of how she got double penetrated by a couple of Marines the night before.
Okay, who's banging this retarded girl? I
Well,
guess she has mild Down syndrome, but still.
in Gummo, she did pretty all right, didn't she? The-
Yeah, but that was the
Down
brother
syndrome.
pimping her out. Like this girl's like
No, it
going
was
out.
the
and-
father actually. Take
It
that
was-
back.
No, it wasn't the father. It was
I
the
thought it
brother.
was the father.
No, it was the brother.
Oh, okay.
But the brother was pimping her out, and so here in this one, it's like this girl's going out to the bars and stuff like that, and she's like,
Down syndrome people are fucking horny creatures, though. They will ride anyone into battle. They wank like chimps.
I want to know how you know that, but I kind of don't.
It's a known fact. They have like super high sex drives, and you know what? It's kind of like a karmic curse on them because their sex drives are so strong, but yet they're sterile.
Oh wow, well that's probably a good thing. Wait, are all Down syndrome people
All
sterile?
down people are sterile, and they have massive, insane high sex drives. That's why they just wank like chimps. Yeah, you've learned something new
Makes
today.
sense.
Big brown eyes that never seemed to point quite in the same direction.
Oh, you
Shit
have gone
everywhere.
And
big.
just a mild case of Down syndrome. I met her through a group of friends who would go over there to her place. after school and sort of set off fire extinguishers and steal shit and eat all our food and just generally express themselves as the degenerate scumbags that God made them. So I ended up over there one afternoon with them, and I'm sitting around, and she's regaling us with stories of all the dirty anonymous sex that she's having, and the story of how she got double penetrated by a couple of Marines the night before, and that's pretty romantic. So I looked at her, she looked at me, and she asked me if I wanted to go have sex, and I was like, but all my buddies were watching, so I agreed. Went in the bedroom, sort of unceremoniously stripped down. She's laying on the bed. And, I didn't have an erection. I was nowhere near an erection. This is miles away from, any kind of an erection at all. But her vagina was so stretched out by her promiscuous activities that I managed to kind of match.
What's kind of funny about this one? It reminds me of a girl. I'm not going to say her name. This girl I went to high school with that all my friends shagged. And I always wanted to shag her too, just because all my friends shagged her, which is just a weird form of logic. Like why would that? Maybe just because I could be like, yeah, I shagged her too, and I could trade war stories.
The bro
stories.
Yeah, bro stories. I fucked her too,
stories.
bro. Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but it's like at least 12 of my friends shagged this girl, and I was just like, kind of bummed I never got to. I don't know if she had like a no Jew policy or something, but it's
a no Jew policy.
A lot of girls have those, but I was just like kind of bummed. I just never got to shag her, but yeah.
You should look her up.
If I was in the same situation where it's like all my buddies were there and it's like, oh, here's your turn, I probably would have done it.
I want to know what she looks like now. Your girl that you didn't shag. What do you think her future was after having shagged everyone in high school apart from Jew?
I think she's working at a gas station, Bay City, Michigan.
Is that what you think? Steele or
That's
no?
what I think.
Let's get
Steele probably would know, actually.
My flaccid, underdeveloped 14-year-old boy dick into her. Seething morass of multiple other men's still swimming semen. I moved it around for a couple of minutes. It felt like an eternity, but it was probably less than a minute, honestly, until it fell out. And I just didn't have the heart to try to put it back in. So, that was it. I had lost my virginity. I decided it was time to go. And
does that count, Kate?
No, you have to have a hard cock because.
No, but I mean, do you have to come? Like, do you have to ejaculate in order?
No,
you
don't. You don't necessarily have to ejaculate, but I think you
just need to penetrate.
Has to penetrate, and he's just mashing his cock into her.
Yeah, but he mashed his flaccid dick in there, so that
that's not
vaginal border.
That's not a penetration, is it? That's a mashing.
So you think it was an artificial penetration?
Yeah, it was like a one step before the full event.
But you don't have to actually fully come then.
No, you don't have to fully come for it to be. As soon as a
loss of virginity
enters someone else willingly, then it's. Why am I going like this? Then it is.
I was like, wait, are you talking about you got to fist the person before or after?
Then it is losing your virginity. I tell you what, this guy.
It's like full on fisting motion right now.
This guy could read the phone book to me, and that would be a date, and he would get pissed at the end of the night.
Yeah, but I think he only fucks Down syndrome girls. So.
Oh well, I'm pretty special though.
Yeah.
I'm a special girl, special K. I've been told I'm special.
You're somewhere on the spectrum, so
totally.
maybe you'd. Yeah, maybe you.
I would fit his criteria. I don't have hairy feet though, and I am 36, so I'm nearly there.
About 10 miles away from Melissa's place, so I needed a ride home from my mother, and I knew that this virginity project that I was embarking on would prevent me from being at the appointed rendezvous time and place. So I had called my mother and told her I'm going to be a little late, and also come pick me up in the parking lot. Right there in front of Melissa's apartment. So I walked out, there's the minivan, hopped in, and I wouldn't find out until later that my mother was actually Melissa's therapist. And so knew exactly who she was, where she lived, and what the fuck was going on over there. But I knew in the moment by the look of abject disgust on her face that she knew that her baby boy had become a man in the most awful way possible. I don't know who lost more respect for me that day, myself or my mother, but she's never looked at me the same way again. Anyway, that's my story. Thanks for doing the show. Really appreciate all the effort you put into it. I was on Patreon, but it lapsed when I, fucked up my bank account. So I'm gonna do it again, though. I promise.
Come back.
All right.
Come back
Thanks
to
a lot. Bye.
Patreon. I want
So
this
wait.
smooth talker back on Patreon.
His mom's a therapist. Why don't you ever bring this up again?
Well, as a therapist mother, you think she would be wanting to talk about this. I don't give a shit if that was a lie or not. I loved that tale. I loved
It was a good
voice.
story. It was a good
But
story.
I really want to think of
Contender.
a good nickname for him. All I can think of is Sexy Indiana, but that's like, nah. I don't even
Oh,
think of a
Indiana
better name.
Jones.
I was going for like an eerie Indiana play on words, but just changing eerie sexy.
I don't know. It kind of sounds like Waylon Jennings to me for some reason. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
because he's got that, but he also has that kind of like a film noir-y detective tone to his
Kind of a
voice.
bit like Deadbug in a way.
He is a
doesn't he?
bit like, yeah, he's like a kind of James Elroy character. I'm gonna think of a good name for this guy. I want him back on the Patreon. If he comes,
He was
back,
good. Yeah. It was
he-
good.
if he comes back to the Patreon, I'll send him a picture.
But that was a contender. I think it was a contender. I actually think that guy should do ASMR videos.
I think
on
he,
YouTube.
yeah,
I
for
think
like
girls would
horny,
love that.
for horny women in their 30s, he would totally have a market.
I
He
think
would.
horny women in their 30s would be flowing like a river, and they hear this guy just
Especially
like
the talk of the Down syndrome girl that he shagged. More of that.
reading Dr. Seuss books. That doesn't even matter. That's all you gotta
Ooh,
do.
reading the now banned Dr. Seuss books.
Yeah, the banned
Because he's a
Dr. Seuss
dangerous
books.
detective. Detective Danger? No, that's too corny.
That's corny. It's got to be
That's what you
named.
think.
Call him Waylon. I think that's good.
No, because if this guy turns out to be an asshole, I don't want Waylon tainted. Because Waylon Jennings is like my number 2 man.
You don't want the
So-
association. So I guess we have to pick a winner here for the virginity stories. That's the last one. That's the last one I got.
The last one. Well, obviously this
Kate,
was
it's up to you.
well, I think that was a fabrication, even though it was highly delightful.
It was good.
Nothing is
Great
beaten-
retelling.
Nothing has beaten Twisted Firestarter for me. Maybe I was more drawn towards that one because it's like such a tale about how to be British.
I'm
Your
trying to
budget,
think.
your-
I liked them. I did like Twisted Firestarter, I think won. I love the Wads. I do love the Wad story.
The Wads is great, but the Wads, because he didn't finish it, there was so many questions left unanswered. Although I feel like the Wad is the runner-up, but Marshall Island Tony also
Marshall Island Tony's was
deserves-
great.
He
Yeah.
deserves a prize as well because he was the guy who
I
inspired
like
this competition.
Psychopathias. Hers was good.
Yeah,
I
hers
kind of
was
liked
good.
all of them, but I think if I had to pick a winner,
It's
it'd be
Twisted
Twisted
Firestarter.
Firestarter. God, that was
Yeah. That was
God, that was
hilarious.
tragic.
And it's just for anyone who ever wants like what is Britain like, that's Britain. Your mates will
Yeah, it was
bully
just-
you no matter what you do. That is what
Just
they'll
the
do.
trauma of that whole scenario.
Being 16. I just love the fact he went to army when he's like, "Oh, I believe in God." And
I kind of want to, maybe I'll post it on Patreon or Discord or something. He sent a picture of him in the army. He looks like a child. He looks like
Oh,
a
I
like a
want to see
12-year-old
him.
boy. Yeah,
Let's-
no, he looks very young. He looks very young.
I'll send him something and you'll send him something.
Definitely gonna send him I'm gonna send him a prize. He won the competition, but thank you everybody for sending your
Yeah,
losing virginity stories.
It's one of my favorite questions. My other favorite question to ask people that puts them on edge is, have you been arrested? And if so, what for?
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Have you ever been to jail? Have you ever spent the night in jail?
Have you ever been to jail? And that might be the next topic. That's
yeah,
good.
for the
That's a
next
good question.
competition.
Yeah.
Dropping this. And if you did you drop the soap?
People call 323-522-4032. Check out the new Reddit page. It's not really that new. It's been up there for a few months, but there's some gross shit on there. I've been posting there. I kind of took a little break from posting there. I'm gonna get back to posting more stuff there. But yeah, there's some like horrendous, vile things on that Reddit. I just like how it's unfettered. Like you can post whatever you want.
I will
you
not
know?
delete anything you post. And no, there's some nice things. Like a really nice Reddit user put up a lovely picture for my birthday with his cat, and it said "Happy Birthday, Kate."
Oh,
So
that's very nice.
thank you. You know who you are.
Uh,
Mhm.
there are some nice people out there in this world that listen to the show. Surprise.
Yes.
Let's go to Reddit, do a search for r/Sick and Wrong podcast, no spaces. Also, the Patreon is blowing up.
It's
It
popping
really is.
off.
There's a lot of people going on the Patreon, and we do appreciate it. It's awesome. That's to me right now after like 15 years of doing the show. That's what keeps me going because it's like
The
people supporting
Patreon.
the show.
Yeah, I
You
like
know,
the Patreon. I love all the comments. We're getting lots more comments and stuff
well,
now.
I
so-
also kind of have fun doing. I have fun doing the regular show now, so I'm a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun for me now doing the show. Kate brings this whole new vitality to it. But I've been doing the show for a long time. It's Patreon is kind of like, you know, you can like let your hair hang down, you can pull your dick out, you can have a good time. You can have a good
Yeah.
time. It's
It's a
like,
balls out party.
yeah, it's a lot less guarded, it's a lot less structured. It's a lot more free form radio on there. And we have a lot of fun. We have fun doing Patreon. We're doing a lot of extra content now. We still do an extra news story, do some extra phone calls. But we do this new segment called Sick and Wrong News, where we kind of cover like just kind of cherry pick news topics through the week that we'd never do on the regular show because it doesn't fit within our thematic structure of Sick and Wrong. But like this week, for example, we talked about Generation Z, the Zoomers, trying to cancel Eminem.
Yeah,
But
it's not cool, guys.
the millennials push back.
Yeah,
Push back
me,
hard.
my generation, we fucked you up. Don't come for Daddy Eminem. We
We
love
also
him.
go into detail about Rudy Giuliani's daughter who loves threesomes. Total slut, that one. I'm not trying to slut shame, but she's a slut. But that's
In the
thing.
best way.
Yeah, she's a slut in a good way, actually. I think she's kind of hot. I was surprised too because I wouldn't want to like bang a girl in any way that resembles Giuliani.
I don't think she's hot. I
kill
think
my
she's got that
boner.
kind of girl next door vibe against her, but she's made hotter by the fact that she
I'd hate it.
absolutely hates her dad, and I like that about her.
I'd totally hit it.
You just want to like come on her face so you can pretend you're coming on a Rudy Giuliani's
Rudy
face.
Giuliani.
Yeah,
And
she'd
wipe
be
it up with
wearing
my
a
poison t-shirt.
Yeah.
But anyway, we do all that, and then also we do a bonus episode, like a mini-sode, we call it, Sick and Wrong Overkill. And this week, Kate kind of went through bizarre medical treatments throughout the I don't know last couple hundred years.
Oh,
My favorite,
centuries, mate.
my favorite was
Centuries.
the fart jar.
The
Got a
fart
lot
jar
of
was
detail about the fart
hilarious.
jar.
Yeah,
So
and
go
how,
find out about fart jars.
the Egyptians loved abortions. They
Yeah,
were all for
Egyptians
it.
and Romans loved abortion. So anyway, a lot going on the Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/sick and wrong. Also, there's a T Public store. If you want to buy some Sick and Wrong merch, just go to sickandwrongpodcast.com/shop. Click on the picture of the Pope. Buy yourself some Sick and Wrong merch. Finally, here's Sick and Wrong song of the week. I'm going to end the show with a Kim Fowley song. Kim Fowley. A lot of people might recognize the name Kim Fowley. He was the manager of the Runaways. An all-around creepy man. I met him, he's kind of one of those like LA stalwarts that was just for a time, I mean, he's dead now, but for a time, any like goth type party that there'd be young goth girls, you'd see creepy ass fucking Kim Valley walking around, like usually with a cane because he was so old. But I had a couple from my friend Holly was really good friends with him. My friend Lenore was really good friends with him. So cross paths with that guy a lot.
Yeah,
And
he
you just
wanted
see
to
him at
put
parties.
he wanted to put me in a band, but I was against it.
Yeah,
You're
he was
old,
just-
Kim Fowley. I'm not being in your fucking bands.
Just this ghoulish looking pervert.
Yeah,
But
totally.
the guy was in a
good
lot of
way.
but he was in like a lot of bands. He he had his own band. He like produced his own music, and a lot of his music is really good. Actually, I have several of his albums. This particular song is a bit of a more obscure single. Only came out on 45. It's off of a comp called "King of the Creeps." Very fitting. Lost Treasures from the Vaults, 1959, 1969. The song came out in 1965. It's called "The Trip." And it has to do with LSD. So it's by Kim Fowley. We're going to end the show with that one. People will be back next week with episode 782. Till then, take it sleazy. That was good.
Keep it newsy.
It was fun. It's a good song, though. That's a fucking.
Yeah,
That's a
Kim
good
Fowley is
Fowley
great.
song. Yeah. He was a creepy motherfucker, though.
He was creepy, but in a like kind of good, nearly bad way. He nearly crossed the line, I think, because he wasn't like a full on kind of Jonathan King type of character. He was, yeah, he towed the line.
Well, he was definitely creepy with the Runaways.
He was very creepy with the Runaways, but he also gave them their career. I think Sherry said that. She was like, I've got to like appreciate everything he did.
Well, I mean, he had all the connections. I think he was able to take these young band, polish their music and get him started and all that. But yeah, I remember last time I saw him was at Hyena Gallery. I think you follow them. And do you follow
I
him
do,
on
and he
Instagram?
follows me, Hyena Gallery. He's a fan of me, and I am a fan of him.
I like that place, actually. I buy a lot of stuff from that guy.
Yeah,
But anyway,
cool.
they did Holly Stevens Memorial there, and he was there with I forget her name. But anyway, Kim Fowley was there, and like we ended up like all going out to dinner, and I was just like, God, this guy's fucking. He had some cool stories.
He's
But
like
I had
older
dinner
than
with
the
him.
crypt. Yeah, as I say, is he not
Yeah,
older
older
than
than
the
the fucking
crypt
crypt
keeper at
keeper.
that time? Like,
It's like an old, tall, skinny crypt keeper. Yeah.
yes, au fait as well.
But yeah, he was kind of cool.
Yeah, thanks everyone for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks
in.
everybody for listening. It was a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. We'll be back next week.
Been up all fucking night. That's really funny. Simon Horner says, reminds me of Steele's friend Martin, his Coke towel. Steele actually had several towels that he used, and he like even kept some in his car. Because I remember, yeah, like his he called it a jit gel rag.
A jit gel.
That's why I think I said that on the show earlier, but a jit gel rag. That's what Steele used to call it. And yeah, he fucking kept it in his car. So I remember sometimes me and Kessler would sit down in his car. He's like, "Oh, you don't want to sit on that." It's like, what? He's like, "That towel." I was like, "Oh shit, why?" He's like, "Oh, it's my cum towel." You know, jit gel rag. You're just like, God, fuck.
What is it? Just because sometimes you get in his car and just get the car boners and just had to take care of business.
Steele and Martin, you can ask him about this. Steele and Martin would go on trips, and Steele would go in the back seat, and he would he would just like wank, pulling off in the back seat while Martin was driving. That's fucking gross.
I will ask Steele about this. Me and Steele also have a new enterprise, but I'm going to save that the next time we're on the Patreon because me and Steele need to flesh that out. The enterprise.
Flesh out the enterprise.
Me and Steele are like a creative force. We have like 4 different ideas in the camp.
You're kind of like a female Steele in many ways.
Yeah, we spent like 4 hours the other night talking about Gordy.
I can't believe. Do you have any pedos at your school? You must have.
Have I not told you the story about my doctor who turned out to be a pedo?
Your gynecologist?
I told this on the show. No, he was my childhood doctor.
No, wow. Did he ever see your vag, your vagine?
Not that I can remember. Maybe I should save this story for the show. Although it is quite boring.
What happened? Now I want to know now. All the people who are listening right now are about to hear a story about Kate getting diddled by her doctor.
Well, I didn't get diddled by him, but when I was 16, I have really bad period pains. So I went to him. I was like, what can I do about them? I don't really want to go on the pill. Is there any other options? And he said, it's what my doctor told me, a 16-year-old girl. He said, your only option is to have a baby.
What?
He was like,
did he impregnate you?
No, he was like, at the minute. I also went to school with his 2 children, whose names
no way to alleviate those pains.
But he said, because my cervix is so tight, I'm always gonna have period pain until a baby basically makes me a whore by shooting out of me. And I was a bit like, because I'm 16, I was like, no, maybe I should just go on the pill. He was like, the pill won't help you. It's not gonna help you. Only having a baby will help you. I was like, right.
What kind of fucking medical advice is that?
I never went to go see him again, and I got a woman doctor after him who put me on the pill. 2 years later, got done. He had 900 indecent images of children on his computer at home. 900.
God, how young
And-
were the kids?
Young. It was like the worst type of indecent. They were like in months to like yeah.
God, terrible.
And then so I had been to school with both of his two boys and I knew them really well. And I would see them in the pub all the time. And it was always like so fucking awkward to be like, so your dad is the
nonce.
basically a
Dr.
town
Nonce.
nonce. And his mum divorced him. As soon as it came out, his mum divorced him and he doesn't live in Penrith anymore. I don't know where he
Fuck
is
yeah.
now. But
I would.
you would never
I
have.
would
I
definitely
always
leave
wanted to
town.
ask them if they were going to keep contact with him. Because you also don't know. I always wanted to ask them if they'd been diddled. It was one of my questions, but I never did.
Well, were they boys or girls on his computer?
Two boys.
You
He
know?
had two boys. One
No,
was
but I
my
mean, the
age.
pictures on his computer, were they have
Both.
boys or girls? Oh,
Both.
both.
Yeah.
God.
Indecent images as well. It wasn't just a case of, oh, yes, I was getting them for research for a book. It was like, no, these.
Yeah, like Pete Townsend.
Like
It wasn't
Pete
like Pete
Townsend.
Townsend
No,
child porn.
This was like child pornography from months old.
Ah, what a sick
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah, and
That's a
that's my
sick
doctor
fuck.
telling me to get fucking pregnant so I can create more babies so he can have pictures of them.
But you never had any teachers that were pedos?
No, but I went to a grammar school, so it's a bit different. There's like less teachers in a way there. And we did have a couple of lesbian teachers though, who I think are still together and are possibly married now.
Huh.
So that's quite forward thinking for a grammar school. It's very forward thinking.
Yeah, we had a couple of lesbian teachers.
Yeah, and a couple of nonce teachers too.
No, they were like in our community before my time, but they were like, I think they said there were 6 nonce teachers.
6.
Yeah, I'm the only time I knew Bigalki, Ashworth, and I forget, there's a third one, but there were 3 others that were from like the 70s and 80s before my time there. But it makes sense because this happened. I don't know if it still happens as much now, but in like the 70s, 60s, 70s, probably the 50s too, a nonce would come in, diddle a bunch of kids, and the
then
school
move on.
didn't want to draw attention. So they'd be like, we're not going to say anything, just leave. And then they just go to the next one and diddle, and just keep moving on, you know? It's fucked up.
Yeah. So me and Steele talked about Gordy for like 3 hours. And just like I was asking him tons of questions about Gordy. Like just about his because like his kids are older than Steele, but Steele knows like his kids have had kids. So Gordy is now like a great grandfather. So we were basically talking about, do you reckon now that maybe the diddling skipped a generation and it's now in the other generations and they're all diddling each other?
I'm sure that's the way it works.
Because you would not leave your baby to bounce on that man's lap, would you? Or would you?
Well, the question is, what would he be bouncing on?
Exactly. Magic fingers. We went
Oh.
into it. It was very funny. Steele is delightful.
It is weird that Gordy, after spending 20 some odd years in prison, would move back to his same life that he had before. So he's not a teacher anymore, but his wife waited for him.
Yeah, and we went and taught theater,
Right back to
didn't
the
he?
community.
We
Went back
talked about
into
that
teaching
because
theater.
basically he has the same kind of population as where I grew up. So why all the nonces in my town, they got run out? Why would he just assimilated back in?
But I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of abuse. I'm sure. I don't know. I have no idea. I know my friend Dreyer, who his mother lives only a couple houses away. Whenever Dreyer go see his mom, he'd see Gordy walking around and he'd just yell at her, it's like, pedophile.
Because he is.
rapist."
'Cause he is. Don't let him forget that. But I was asking Steele if they would crash his funeral, Gordy's funeral.
Oh yeah, because Gordy's got to be like 90 now.
He is, yeah, you said he's 90.
Jesus.
And then that got us into a whole other enterprise. That's where our new ideas sprung from.
All right, well, that's for another show.
Definitely.
Anyway, people, thanks for fucking hanging out. It was cool.
Yeah, it's cool, guys.
I gotta
Thanks.
get to bed. It's like 5 a.m. over here.
Me
but,
too. 'Cause I have to go to work tonight.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody.